Hello everybody, how are you doing on this, what is it, today, Wednesday? Welcome on this wonderful Wednesday to Chud Watch, the show where we try and come up with some sort of catchphrase live on air, and it doesn't work out. Today we're going to be looking at tons of right-wingers from all around the internet. We're going to be looking at John Doyle, The Quartering, One Angry Gamer, Tate Speech, Terrence Pop, Black Pigeon Speaks, Sandman, and anyone else that you guys send me. Hello everyone, hello DM Trey, Vulcan Princess 97, Captain Rachel, Trash, Vamp666, Baha. Oh, thank you, Reza Sutra, for gifting 2 subs, I appreciate that. Baha made a Lupine emote, Lupine being the new kitty, and that is processing right now. So, we should have a new kitty emote soon as it's approved. I'm a partner now, so my emote, stuff gets pushed to the top of the pile, at least over affiliates. So, hopefully within the next 24 hours or so, you'll have a brand new emote. We still gotta get ones like The Bones. We gotta get, I don't know. There's a variety of ones that we still need to do. And by we, I of course mean the lovely, the beautiful, my girlfriend, Baja Blast 7175 here in chat. Thank you, Baja Blast, for all the work you do for the show, because I do not have Photoshop. I got some odd emotes. That one actually has, the Pride Satan is because that Satan is from Glenn or Glenda, the, Ed Wood film about transgender people from the 50s, and in that movie, Satan is, like, in this dream sequence where he's tempting these people to be trans, and he's, like, at their wedding, so it's, like, supportive trans positive Satan. That's why that's what that is. We watched it on a stream once, so. Windows Paint? Nah, gotta get those high quality images with the Photoshop. Thanks, Adobe. So, how's everyone doing today? Hello, Hungry Killer 666, Gen Z Doomer, everyone else. Adobe, and then like a disgust emote. Hey, it does the job. Switch over to this camera. Ooh, I can see me seeing me. It's like an infinite regress of Hannah's. Interesting. Let me switch what tab I'm on. Today I think I want to start with One Angry Gamer, because boy, does he get triggered over the dumbest stuff. How taxing is Twitch on your PC? I guess it would depend upon what bitrate you're streaming at. I got a new work PC a while back though, so it's fine. But I haven't actually looked at how. I'll open my task manager and see what the CPU usage and stuff on is. Streamlabs OBS is taking 17% of my CPU. And 26% of my GPU. And it's a pretty good computer. So, it just depends. But bear in mind, I also, like, have, all these graphics are moving, and they're separate elements. And that has to stream out to you guys. I also have the chat and these, like, dynamic elements going. So, it's possible if you stripped it, like, all the way back and just had a very simple stream, it's entirely possible it would use less of your computer's, like, memory and stuff. But, I'm also not playing a game at the same time. I'm just streaming, like, Google Chrome. So, it largely depends, I'd imagine, on what you're streaming. Are you just doing a stream where you're talking, like this, and you show the thing up here in this corner? Or are you, like, playing a game? So, it's gonna depend. Not Spider-Man again. Yes, Spider-Man again. He's mad because Miles Morales happens to not be a white person. So we're gonna get to see what that's all about. Let me turn this music off. Okay, so, one angry gamer who seems to hate basically every video game that he's ever played, unless it's like a video game that takes place in like 1920s Germany, is mad because of Miles Morales existing, it seems like. Baida Kaiju says Miles Morales has existed for over a decade at this point, hasn't he? Or am I overshooting? Let's see when Miles Morales was introduced. Miles Morales first appearance. 2011, so 9 years. Miles Morales is not a new character. I mean, relative to Peter Parker, he is, but, you know, he's been a mainstay of the Marvel Universe since he debuted almost a decade ago. So, Chuds need to get over this shit. He's also an interesting character. I like Miles Morales a lot. I like a lot of the Spider people. I think Ghost Spider, who used to be go by Spider-Gwen, is cool too. Like, but I don't know. It just seems like a weird thing to get mad about. Captain Rachel says, I'm gonna bet he's going to say DLC Miles is fine, but why cram him in as the main character? Maybe. Let's take a look and find out what he's mad about. Back in June, Sony and Insomniac Games had two differing opinions regarding what the race-swapped Spider-Man game was going to be. Oh no. Okay, for one thing, it's not race-swapped. It's starring Miles Morales. It's not like they said, here's Peter Parker, he's a black guy now. And even if they did, who the fuck cares? I don't really care. Miles Morales is his own character, who was already established, by the way, in the previous game, not to mention the almost decades-long mainstay in the Marvel Comics. And the hit film, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is probably the best Spider-Man movie ever made, which starred Miles. So, kind of a really, really fucked up way to describe this character, and it comes off as intentionally trying to downplay the importance of Miles Morales in modern Spider-Man, just because you don't like him, because of the color of his skin. It's very silly. And silly is a nice word I could use to describe it. According to Sony's head of European business, it was going to be an expansion tacked on top of an overhauled Spider-Man that would take advantage of the extra processing power the PlayStation 5 has to offer. WCCF Tech quoted Simon Rudder, who stated, there's a substantial Miles Morales component, which is the expansion element, but also within the game as well. There's been major enhancements to the game and the game's engine, obviously deploying some of the major PlayStation 5 technology and features. Insomniac and Jason Schreier, on the other hand, insisted the game was a standalone expansion. That assertions made by Sony were patently false and that Sony were merely falsely conveying the scope of the project and development. Insomniac Games tweets, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales is the next adventure in the Marvel Spider-Man universe. We will reveal more about this standalone game at a future date. Jason Schreier, who is a renowned gaming journalist, I think he now works for like Business Insider or something like that, but he's done really great op-eds in the past. News, Spider-Man Miles Morales is not an expansion or enhancement or remaster despite a Sony executive's comment this morning, a source tells Bloomberg News. Nor is it Spider-Man 2. It's a brand new standalone game similar in scope to Uncharted Lost Legacy, which was sort of like a spin-off, shorter but still full game experience from the Uncharted series. Jason Schreier continues, I've seen some weird theories floating around, so just to clear something up, Miles Morales was always a smaller scale standalone game. Sony probably should have said that last night, but the main cause for confusion here is a Sony exec's erroneous comments. So to me it sounds like a Sony executive probably wasn't exactly clear themselves, because I would expect them to understand their own first-party titles. It's possible that they had some sort of misunderstanding around it, misspoke, something along those lines, and Insomniac, the developers of the game, have explained and clarified further, and they would know. They're the ones developing the game. Yeah, like Far Cry New Dawn or Primal. It basically takes the same map. Thank you to Butterfly Pimp 7 for following. Yeah, it basically takes the same map from the original, changes some stuff, a little bit like Arkham Arkham Origins 2, which took the Arkham City map and expanded it a little bit, but it was using the same assets and the same engine and everything, although with improvements, and building a game out of that, and that's fine. That's a reasonable thing to do. I'm playing, for instance, on the Switch right now, the Borderlands games. The Handsome Jack collection came out, and it has both Borderlands 2 and Borderlands the pre-sequel. The Borderlands the pre-sequel uses the same game engine, some of the same assets, a lot of the same guns and stuff, but it builds on top of that, and they were able to produce a cheaper spin-off game due to that. And it's still fun. They're a great thing to do. It's an economical way to go about making games. Why throw away the game engine and the map you've already made if you can change it enough and add gameplay features and do enough with it that you can create an entirely new thing out of it? It's a cool way to develop extra games with fewer costs. Devious Chillster with 50 bits. Wait, is this ferret burglar mad that Miles Morales is getting his own game and isn't relegated to just a fucking expansion? I think so. I'm guessing. Let's see what the final paragraphs say. At the time, it was noted that it would extraordinarily unlikely that Sony wouldn't be aware of what they were paying for and showing off, that it was equally unlikely Simon Rutter, who made the statement above supervises the European region, would be misinformed about the nature of what was in production. Honestly, considering he was, like, a European head, it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't know. He's not necessarily in the know. He's not a head of the Japanese studio, or the Japanese division of Sony, nor is he the head of the American division. So he might not be as in the know about every single title as everyone else is. Is that unfortunate? Should he know that as part of his job? Probably, but people make mistakes. It's fine. Without further evidence, it was indeterminable which side of the argument was telling the truth. What? Insomniac clarified. They're the ones making the game. What are you talking about? Insomniac is the developer. If they clarify, that's the answer. Now we have that additional evidence, and Sony was correct on the scope of the project. According to the latest issue of Game Informer, Spider-Man Miles Morales is shipping with a remastered version of the original Marvel Spider-Man, which is fine, but that doesn't make Spider-Man Miles Morales not its own game, right? You can do both, like the Handsome Jack collection, for instance, includes Borderlands the pre-sequel, which is sort of the spin-off game that used a lot of the same assets, and it comes with Borderlands 2. That doesn't make Borderlands the pre-sequel not its own game. It seems like this guy's just, like, upset, legitimately, that Miles Morales is getting his own spin-off game. Very strange. Game Informer admits many are calling it an expansion, but claims they imagine it to be similar to Uncharted Lost Legacy because of its length. There is no clarification or attempts to define what the expansion is, but because Sony has confirmed it is an expansion, they can no longer claim it isn't. It's a new game. They literally say it's similar to Uncharted The Lost Legacy here, and they're referencing this person's tweet, Jason Schreier, who's one of the most respected investigative journalists in gaming journalism. You're really trying to spin this as Spider-Man Miles Morales. It's not its own game. Miles Morales can't have his own game. He's not white. Grow up, dude. Like, aren't you just excited that there's another cool Spider-Man game coming out? The Spider-Man game, they've shown the box. Yeah, there's a box art for it. It's going to be in its own box. It has its own SKU. It's not just some random expansion. It's not DLC. What are you talking about? The Spider-Man game from whenever it was, 2019, is fantastic. I love that game. I still play it sometimes. It's a lot of fun. The combat's very satisfying. And I'm excited to see what they add in terms of Miles, because Miles has different abilities than Peter. If you don't know, Miles Morales has many of the main powers of Spider-Man. He has access to web shooters that Peter does, so he can also shoot webs. But, you know, he can wall crawl, he has agility, he has spider sense, but he also has this sort of venom attack that, like, he can touch people and do, like, a stinger thing on them. He can also turn invisible. You probably saw this in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. If you haven't, please check it out. It's a great movie. Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting little excursion. Honestly, what was Insomniac and Schreier thinking? Insomniac is making the game. If they say that's what it is, because they're making it. Jesus. There's no scenario in which they get away with this lie. It's not a lie. You're misinterpreting what has happened here. It's not a lie. We've seen it. Hold on. Spider-Man Miles Morales box art. This is what the PS5 box art looks like, too, by the way, if you didn't see it. Yeah, it's its own game. See? It might have, like, a download code or something in it for, like, a updated version of the original Spider-Man, but it's still its own game. Here it is. This is an official picture of it. Sony isn't foolish enough to set up a PR nightmare where they have the race-swapped version. No, it's not race-swapped. Did you even play Spider-Man? Miles Morales was in the original Spider-Man game. He was a character. You play as him in a couple stealth missions. Competing with the original, only to have the original vastly outsell the standalone expansion. Eventually, this was going to get announced, as it truly was. Jesus Christ, he's so salty that there's a standalone Miles Morales game. And frankly, it's one of the... thank you to Devious Chilster for 25 bits. The end even fucking cliffhang a Miles Morales game. Yes, it did. What was I going to say? Shoot, I lost my train of thought. Oh, Miles Morales is going to be... I don't know if it's a launch title, but if it's not a launch title, it's like in the first 2 months of the PS5 releasing. It's going to be huge, especially because it's in that period where there aren't a ton of titles for the new system. It's going to be huge. Everyone loved Spider-Man. Like, what? Honestly, the Spider-Man DLC, someone in the chat saying they need to play the Spider-Man DLC. The Spider-Man DLC is okay. It's not that great. They're pretty short. They do add more difficult combat because, like, they get more, you know, complicated enemies and stuff, and it's okay. But I was a little disappointed because I bought the season pass prior to them releasing, and it said, like, ooh, there's gonna be all sorts of new crimes, and I was thinking about it sort of like the Arkham Knight pack, where, like, they would add new supervillains and whole quest lines, and it wasn't really that. It was okay if you just want more Spider-Man. If you get it on sale, get it. But don't buy it at full price. I don't think it's worth it. By the way, all the ads on this guy's site are embarrassing. They're always these gross, like, hentai mouse pads. So, I don't know. That's one angry gamer's latest thing. I have an ad blocker on, by the way, but this still pops up. So they're, like, the most virulent ads I've ever seen. Thank you, Blank Mattel from Spain. Appreciate that. But yeah, he's super salty and trying to be like, Insomniac's lying about this being a full game. We saw the cover. We saw the cover for it. The cover exists. It's a full game. It's gonna come out. Let's do one more. One more from his site, and then we'll move on. Obsidian Entertainment adds, quote, safe space arachnophobia mode to Grounded. So Grounded is a new survival game coming from Obsidian. Grounded is sort of like a Honey, We Shrunk the Kids crossed with Rust, where you're shrunk down and you're in like a yard or different locations. I don't know if there's different maps. I haven't looked a ton into this game. And the main enemies are stuff like, you know, like bugs and little things. You know, that's the whole gimmick of the game, is you're tiny and you can build shelters out of, like, you know, stuff that you find, like, you know, Q-tips and Band-Aids and whatever. You can turn a Band-Aid into a tent. Like, it's cool. Looks like a fun concept for a game. I'll probably pick it up maybe on sale at some point, but, you know, I'm not the biggest into survival games, although stuff like Subnautica is pretty good. But I feel like in a survival game, I need some sort of goal to get to, otherwise I just get bored with it. Like, I'll pick up Minecraft every once in a while, and I don't know, without, like, I know there's a main goal, you get to the end with the dragon and stuff, but the gameplay loop of Minecraft, I get tired of relatively quickly. So, I don't know. We'll see what this game's like, but it looks like a fun little survival game, and Obsidian's a really great studio, so I imagine it'll probably be okay. So, of course, being that insects are a major enemy in the game, you also have arachnids, spiders, that attack you sometimes. Some people, myself included, really don't like spiders. Like at all. My fear of spiders is not enough that I would need to use this mode where they remove the spiders and replace them with other insects, but I can understand that someone with like just a visceral reaction to creepy crawly spiders might want a game mode in which they don't have to deal with spiders. I know, for instance, Skyrim has giant spiders as enemies, frostbite spiders. There are some mods that will replace the spiders with bears, because some people just cannot viscerally deal with spiders. They like, it like physically makes them react, and I understand that, and I'm perfectly fine with game modes in order to help people if they have difficulty dealing with some element of the game. It doesn't affect me. If I don't want to use that mode, I don't have to. So why care about it? So let's read why they believe that this is a safe space and why that's bad. There's nothing wrong with options and the ability to change things. Seems like you probably think there is, otherwise why would you, write the rest of this stupid article? With that said, Xbox Game Studios and Obsidian Entertainment took the ability to alter things to another level by adding a safe space mode. It's just a mode where you can get rid of spiders. In Grounded for those suffering from arachnophobia. In other words, the game that's now available for PC via Steam Early Access and Xbox One through the Xbox Game Preview boasts multiple options to prevent the act of triggering an arachnophobe. Yep. That's fine. There's more to this story. The game even has a trigger warning that details how you can turn on or off and adjust the cosmetic changes to reduce any form of arachnophobia, as per website, mpfirst.com. The game contains spiders that are often much larger than the player. If you're super not okay with that, you can enable arachnophobia safe mode in the accessibility options. This is a visual-only setting that does not affect gameplay or difficulty. Very simple. It's just a little message beforehand so people who don't like the creepy crawly spiders can turn them off. It's fine. This person says, I bet you're thinking, wait, wasn't this announced like a month ago? And to answer that question, yes, it was announced like a month ago. However, it wouldn't be current year if the dev team didn't promote this every other week. Additionally, a new blog post accompanying the game's early access launch has popped up titled Accessibility Features, listing the following optional spider changes. No changes to spider visuals. Reduced number of spider legs to 4. That's interesting. Remove all spider legs. Remove all spider legs. Remove spider fangs. Remove all spider legs. Change spider mesh to simple shapes. Remove all spider legs. Change spider mesh to simple shapes. Changes spider. Materials to simple colors with shiny textures. That's all fine. Who cares? There are a lot of people who are viscerally afraid of spiders. They creep me the fuck out. Not enough that I would need to use this feature, but I can understand that some people, it would be so much that they would be like, I can't buy this game. I'd otherwise love this game, but I can't, right? Like, that's fine. It's cool that they're giving options to people if they don't want to deal with the spider thing but still want to play the game. It's not like they're forcing this on you. It's not like they said, by the way, we're removing spiders from the game because they creep some people out. Which I also wouldn't care, because at the end of the day, they're the developers and they can decide to do whatever they want with their own game. So, one angry gamer, mad that everyone isn't like him, continues, although there are useful options in the main menu like colorblind toggles, text size, text chat to speech, subtitles, and so on, the team stresses that they want to make the game as diverse as possible by offering those with fear of spiders an arachnophobia safe mode. As for the game itself, Grounded is your typical sandbox building game where you can play with other people and explore dangerous points of interest. The theme of the game explores kids that have to be smaller than the playscape around them while using typical crafting and open-world exploration tactics to best any situation at hand. With all of that said, the game is available to pick up right now across PC, Steam, Early Access for $29.99, and the Xbox Game Preview program as noted below. Here's the trailer, in case anyone wants to see it. I think it looks like a fun game. If you're into, survival crafting games.
For the biggest game of the year. Then wait for Cyberpunk. But if you're ready for the smallest, we've got you covered.
I think it looked cute. I like the idea of like a Honey, We Shrunk the Kids type game, because I loved that movie as a kid, that whole series, actually. Because there were sequels to that, if anyone doesn't know. But, you know, whatever. Cotton Candy 903 with a bit says, I have terrible arachnophobia, and realistic spiders in media cause me panic. I used to hide during the Shelob fight in Lord of the Rings in the Aragog part of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Yeah, right? And it's cool that even if you want to play this game, you might not, but other people might who have similar arachnophobia issues have the option to turn the spiders off.
From Obsidian Entertainment, the makers of games that are nothing like this one. This summer, strive together to thrive together. Or just feed your friend to the spiders and go solo.
Like, I think that looks cool. If it ever goes on sale for Steam, I'll probably pick it up. I think it looks like a fun game. I probably wouldn't play it a ton, but, you know, play it for a couple weeks, build some bases, have some fun. So, he's mad that other people have options to play the game. The one thing I'll never get about gamers like this is their propensity to dislike when other people are allowed into the hobby, right? Like, I play video games. I don't self-describe as a gamer, specifically because of shitbags like this, who make people see gamers as, like, cringy incel weirdos who dislike other people. But, like, shouldn't you be happy that other people are having the opportunity to enjoy the same games as you? Like, if you enjoy something, don't you want to share that with others? That seems to be sort of the fun part of having, like, a hobby or whatever, is to be like, wow, look at all these other people that are into the same things and are able to play them. It's great. Andrew Dickerson says, no, you need to play Yakuza 0 when it goes on sale on Steam. I have no idea what that is. Maybe, though. But yeah, it's interesting. It's like the same people who are like, oh, this game shouldn't have an easy mode or a super easy mode. Like Nintendo, for instance, a while back, with the most recent Mario Kart release, added, like, auto steering and auto acceleration. So it's basically like a baby mode. So if you have, like, you know, a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or whatever, and they're not the most coordinated, they can play the game alongside their brothers and sisters or their parents or whoever, and be able to do it, right? And people are like, oh my god, you need to get good if you can't play the game. It's like, it's for fucking children, people. Like, at that age, they're interested in having fun and just playing the game with people they care about, not, like, getting good and whatever. It's fine. Who cares? Who cares? What matters is to get them interested in the hobby if it's something that you are interested in, and something you think that they'd have a good time doing. And then as they get older, they'll develop, you know, the ability to get better at these games, and they can take the training wheels off. It would legit be like putting a kid on a bicycle. Ooh, look at this ad. It's like hentai women showing their butts. Yeah, I'm gonna put that up on my wall. It would be like trying to teach a kid to ride a bike, and they've never rode a tricycle or anything with training wheels, and you just go, ride it! And they go, but I keep falling over, and you go, ride it! Like, you should, they need to learn the basics first, and how it feels to not fall over. I don't know. Just seems strange. One angry gamer's mad about everything all the time, and it seems to me that it must be an incredibly sad life, so good luck with that, one angry gamer. Until next time. Let's see, we have John Doyle on a video that's long. We might not watch the whole thing, but I wanted to check it out. It says, "Why the left hates white people," which I'm sure will be about as cringe as we expect. We have the quartering. The quartering suing someone, though from what I can tell, it's actually justified. We might watch that. We have something about seeds from China spreading COVID. I don't know. If we do him, then we might do Hollywood Panics, probably because of, you know, COVID and the fact that theaters have not only been closed, but even when they have been open, fewer people are going. Terrence Pop, who's a drunk guy. The Ender 92, thanks for subscribing. The Ender 92 says, "I had an argument with my family about whether or not the Civil War was about slavery or states' rights. I wanted to die the entire time. Did you ask them, the states' rights to do what? What were they doing that they weren't going to be allowed to do?" What did they say? You say they did say that, so what did they say? We also have Black Pigeon Speaks. We tried to watch this video on the, quote, twinkification of modern men, but that was when we were having stream issues, so I wanted to finally get to that proper. And then Sandman. What do you guys think we should do first? Any votes? Doyle? 1 vote for Doyle. They didn't want to be controlled by the northern government and wanted to keep their power local. Yeah, that's bullshit. You could show them, like, the constitutions of some of the country, or some of the states that seceded, and how they specifically mention they're leaving over slavery. Look it up and show it to them. Dude spanking dudes with a bit. That Black Pigeon Speaks thumbnail is actually one of Shadman's drawings, of course. Of course it is. I think Twinks wins. Looks like Twinks wins. We'll do Twinks, then we'll do Doyle, because Doyle was, like, second, I think. So Black Pigeon Speaks on, quote, the rise of the modern emasculated man. Tokyo, Japan.
Tokyo, the city I am based in, does not have one central business district or a city center of sorts, being the largest, or at least one of the largest metro areas in the world, depending on how you count it. Well, the city is massive, and a ubiquitous part of Japanese urbanism is the many red light districts that dot the cities of Japan, and that have been for centuries an integral part of the overall society. But things are changing. Men and women are changing, as is their relationship between the genders.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed in the last 20 or 30 years, all over the world, especially due to the widespread adoption of the internet and the availability of basically all the information on the planet to anyone at any time, and the ability to communicate with people outside of the same cultures as you. So we have been seeing a shift because we've been hearing voices that haven't really been heard in the past. Trans people, people of color, women, like all sorts of issues that just were not at the forefront are now at the forefront today. Genderqueer people, all sorts of people. So our relationships with each other have changed accordingly and will continue to change. This happens all the time. All throughout human history, you see the relationships between people and their own identities change over time. It's basically the only constant you see throughout history is that change of people and their cultures. And that's fine. That's good. People grow. People change. Societies grow and change with them. That's sort of how it all works. So painting it as a negative thing is not only profoundly ignorant, but futile. You can't stop society from changing. It's like the one thing society always does.
But in Japan, like much of the Western world, it's seeing not only the continued denigration, deconstruction, and dismissal of all things masculine, but many young men are simply opting out of society.
society and the way that it's changing is not in any way denigrating or disparaging masculinity. What we're recognizing is perhaps trying to work on issues that are toxically masculine. You see this, for instance, in the fact that male suicide rates are incredibly high. We see this in the fact that male homelessness is incredibly high. We see this because men are not creating the same sort of social networks that women tend to have with their friends and family. Men tend to be very solitary and feel that they should deal with their problems on an individual level instead of taking them and getting help from others, and that results in a lot of negative outcomes for men and society as a whole. So, as a society, we're trying to say, hey, let's all be more open about our problems, about our feelings, whatever. And that's fine. That doesn't make you any less masculine. It's just being masculine in a healthier way.
And there are many reasons for this, but one of the most overlooked and potentially clear explanations for this phenomenon and the ever-increasing feminization in men the world over, well, in a word, testosterone, or lack thereof it.
This is going to be about soy boys. I think H-Bomber guy had just about the final say on that, but, you know, do you?
A big thanks to Raid
Oh,
Shadow
God.
Legend. You can pick away
I need to
information
start
and
getting
one
sponsors
day
like Raid
pretty
Shadow
down-
Legends, because
down-
apparently they'll just pay anyone to hawk their shit. Always with the B-roll
Nowhere
of the women
is
in
the gender
bikinis and
imbalance
stuff.
worse than that which can be found in Japan, and specifically in its adult movie industry. The balance, in fact, is so bad that an article published a few years ago tallied the total number of male performers in the country at around 70, in contrast to the approximately 10,000 female performers.
That probably has to do with the Japanese culture that tends to be incredibly conservative. Women can also, for instance, in Japan, because of the internet, be adult performers online in a solo capacity, basically do an OnlyFans or something like that, or produce their own independently made adult films. I think, statistically, I could be wrong, but it seems to me statistically, people who are attracted to women are more likely to seek out pornography in which those women are on their own, as opposed to the opposite. I'm sure there are people who are into watching men alone in an adult context, but it's certainly not something you see as much as you see of women, right? Okay.
In fact, it's gotten so bad that the 85-year-old Shigeo Tokuda, who is the undisputed, as per his entrance into the Guinness Book of World Records, he is the undisputed world's oldest adult video performer.
How old is Ron Jeremy? Ron Jeremy age. In fairness, I don't think Ron Jeremy works anymore. He's 67.
And his colleague, the male performer that goes by the stage name Shimiken, well, he is the busiest male actor in Japan, and he previously tweeted a couple of years ago a cry for help.
What I'm hearing is if you want to be a male porn star, get yourself a ticket and a visa to go to Japan, and you might have a pretty good time. You might have a better shot than coming to, like, California and trying to get into the adult film industry. Just a thought.
Were in August 2014, when he wrote that in this industry, the number of
Oof, Ron Jeremy has assaulted women. That's unfortunate.
male performers in Japan is less than that of Bengal tigers. And with 4,000 new movies coming out every month, the number of male actors simply isn't enough. And mirroring the Japan adult movie industry, not only in Japan are younger people having less and less sex, but this phenomenon...
That has to do with Japan's incredibly toxic work culture. I'm sure we've all read about this, but basically they value incredibly intense working hours, even worse than that here in the United States. They value the appearance of work over actual productivity. People fall asleep at their desks all the time, and that's seen as like a positive thing. It's an incredibly toxic work culture. And at some point, it's going to backfire. I think it already is in Japan, because their economy's suffering, because there are fewer births and stuff, because there are fewer relationships. So things will at some point fundamentally change one way or the other, because they have to. This happens in society. Society will come up against an issue, and then that issue will force the society to change. That's how everything has ever worked.
Is also being registered in Western nations as well. In a popular cover story in the December 2018 issue of The Atlantic magazine, titled The Sex Recession, this article used data and argued that young people are launching their sex lives not only later, but are having less sex frequently than members of previous generations.
I mean, you didn't have Netflix in the past, and there were 3 stations, so what else are you gonna do, you know what I mean? I know that's reductive, and kind of a bad joke, but I am just saying, like, there's a lot of stuff to distract us nowadays.
Thus, what we are in the midst of.
Society was also in a situation, by the way, where for most of, like, American history, women didn't have the opportunity to go out and build their own lives for themselves. They were basically expected to go and get married and have children at a very young age. So the fact that people have more freedom nowadays to go do things on their own if they don't want to be in a monogamous relationship, that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with society inherently having less sex if it means that people have the freedom to go out and be the person they want to be and do the things they want to do. That's fine.
Currently is an epidemic of sorts, a lack of virility that is reshaping every aspect of our society, that's not only seeing birth rates plummet, but family formation.
That's good. If we could get fewer people on the planet by people having fewer children, that would be a good thing for the environment and for the people who are here.
Living arrangements, and even the relationship between the genders being redefined. And this is having a profound impact on our culture and our civilization, and that which we will bequeath the coming ever-shrinking generations of our posterity.
It would be fine if we had fewer people on the planet. What we're currently doing and have been for most of human history is unsustainable. You can't have constant exponential growth in your populations on a planet like this. We have finite resources, and on top of that, employment is scarce because we've increased automation so much. So it would seem to me it would make sense that in the future we should focus on quality of life for people and not quantity of life. So even if people do have kids, maybe they have 1 kid, maybe they have 2 kids, and just do sort of a, replacement rate, but they don't have more. I'm not even saying insofar as, like, a ban on having more. I'm just saying, as a society basically agreeing, hey, we don't need to have a ton of kids for no reason. That'd be fine.
While there has been push in both the West and in Japan for men to drop out of the mating game altogether,
it always shocks me every time I see it, no matter how many times I see it, that these MGTOW people think that they are any substantial amount, that they are a substantial enough part of the population that they are affecting anything. Look, I'm sure there are a lot of MGTOW people on the internet, but it's not something that is concerning. If you want to go your own way and just be on your own, that's fine. It's great. Go do that. It's interesting that you spend all of your time talking about women when clearly you're trying to say that you're going your own way. Like, don't you have other things to focus on? But, like, hey, do you, and there's nothing wrong with that.
There are divergent reasons given by men checking out of society.
Rising Phoenix, thank you for continuing your sub.
In the West, with the MGTOW movement that rightly sees a hostile society and legal system that doesn't take men's issues into account and can severely penalize men who find themselves in failed relationships, and these penalties and sanctions can last a lifetime for even a brief liaison with the wrong woman. And thus many MGTOW don't see any point in entering into a new relationship in this trap set for them.
Okay, first of all, not a trap. Second of all, the things that you're talking about in regard to courts often ruling in the favor of, for instance, mothers in custody hearings. I've talked about this before on the channel, but basically this is a result of the fact that a lot of judges are older dudes, and they have very conservative views on men and women, and they view that, of course, that women should get the kids, because women, you know, they're the caregivers, yada, 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 despite the fact that you're both the parents. Same thing happens with alimony and stuff like that. I do think that it makes sense within a relationship, especially if it ends quickly in a divorce or whatever. It makes sense because relationships are often agreements in which one person will shoulder certain burdens, whether they be financial or with certain acts, whatever, and the other person does something else. It can make sense financially to say, hey, in order to basically dissolve this contract that was your marriage, there needs to be some sort of payout for a certain period of time so this other individual can get on their feet and support themselves. That's fine. Same with child support. If you have a kid and you're not taking care of them, like they're not physically in your house, yeah, it makes sense for you to give child support. That's reasonable. That's not unreasonable. And it could go both ways. I don't care. If you're a mom and you get your kids taken away from you and they get given to the dad, you should also pay child support. These are fine. It's fine.
By the legal system and society. In contrast, in Japan, what society has witnessed is the rise of a new class of young men defined as herbivore men or grass-eater men, and it's a term used in that country to describe men that have no interest in getting married or of finding a girlfriend. The term herbivore men is also a term...
MGTOW isn't really conservative. They're pretty right-wing. I would disagree with you on that one.
Used to describe young men who have lost their, quote, manliness, closed quote, because many of them also have very little interest in sex. And put simply, in Japanese society, it is the perceived loss of manliness or masculinity that defines the herbivore man.
The herbivore man. What? Did you just get tired of people making fun of you for saying the word soy boy? So you think you can shift it to calling someone the herbivore man? It's like the term soy boy, but it's smoking a cigar and drinking a whiskey. The herbivore man. It's still soy boy. It's still a stupid argument. Mock Turtleneck, thanks for continuing your sub. Mock Turtleneck says, just got here and this is going to be good. Also, I've been subbed for 3 months, so thank you, Hannah, for all the awesome content. Well, thank all of you for coming to watch it and supporting the channel via subs and bits and everything. It's what makes this possible. So thank you.
Back in the West, while it's not hard at all to see the lack of traditional masculinity in much of the mainstream media as well as academia that has come to define masculinity as toxic.
No, I've explained this many times before, and I don't understand why these people don't get it. Toxic masculinity does not say that all masculinity is toxic. It's specifically talking about things that are seen as masculine within society that are toxic and labeling them as such. For instance, oh boy, what's a good example of this? Let's say you get hurt. Physically, emotionally, let's go with emotionally in this case. Someone cheats on you. Someone cheats on you, which is one of the worst things that can happen to you emotionally. I understand that. And you want to cry about it. You feel heartbroken and you want to reach out to people, your friends, your family that you care about, and talk about how you feel about this. But your brain goes, or other people in your friend group go, suck it up, don't cry, you're a man, men don't cry, men don't share their emotions, just drink a beer and get over it. That's toxic. It happens to be something that's being reinforced and threatened to you because of your perceived masculinity, and it's toxic in that it is damaging to you to hold your emotions in and avoid them and not share them with people and not create that support network that helps, like, women out, for instance, when things like this happen, it leads to, again, higher suicide rates for men because they don't deal with their problems. It's toxic masculinity. Being a man is not toxic. Specific actions, specific ways of thinking about your masculinity, those can be toxic, and that's what the term means.
Was probably best exemplified a couple of years ago by the BuzzFeed guys, who in an experiment on male attractiveness competed to see who was the hottest of the 4 males that had testosterone levels tested. But like BuzzFeed's readership, or Vox's readership, or Vice's readership, etc., their results were pretty much what you would have expected them to be. To put it into perspective, not a single BuzzFeed beta male met the T-score average. Rather, all of the men tested below the level of a typical 85-year-old man.
Do you understand what average means? Average means that there are people above and below. An average is an aggregate derived from that. So if a certain group of people happen to be lower, that's not unreasonable. That's what happens on averages. It's fine.
Moreover, 3 of the 4 men tested below the average range, and the male that had the highest testosterone level still had a relatively very low T-score.
What does relatively very low mean? That's a weasel word. It sounds to me like one of them did have about average levels, and you're going, well, it technically wasn't exactly average, so it was relatively low. Come on. Don't fudge your data like that.
And what's important and must be noted, and has been noted by Elite Men's Guide, quote, testosterone is what makes a man, closed quote. The hormone indicates muscle mass.
Don't necessarily agree with that one. That's not how gender works.
Body frame, sex drive, aggression, and the amount of hair on your chest.
Did you know that if you don't have hair on your chest, you're not a man? That's ridiculous. Of course you are. Fuck off with that shit. This is literally toxic masculinity, trying to judge other men and their masculinity by arbitrary measurements.
Feed, quote, men, closed quote, were not toxic in their masculinity. They were simply anemic. And this is part of an alarming trend and has given rise to what are now the new slang terms to describe these kind of men. New males, beta males, and so...
Yeah, happy Puritan. No. I've seen plenty of MGTOWs and incels and people like Coach Red Pill who are like, I would be with a woman if it wasn't for modern society standards, and they often are like, we just want things to go back how they used to be, where women had to be with men, and if they could get some sort of weird 1950s Leave It to Beaver household, where they came home and their wife had made them a meatloaf and they're gonna rub their feet, they'd be fine with it. They're MGTOW because they don't like the fact that women have agency nowadays, and therefore don't have to put up with their bullshit. So yeah, that's conservative.
Boys. And could this phenomenon, the twinkification, if you will, of the modern man,
Hey, don't you badmouth twinks.
Have more serious repercussions? Well, in a recent article in Forbes, when talking about the precipitous drop in testosterone, the author Neil Howe had this to say. Studies show that...
You'd argue they're libertarian in every regard? Yep, that's right-wing. Libertarianism is a right-wing ideology.
Men's testosterone levels have been declining for decades.
And no, many of them are not libertarian. As I said, many of them want women to have fewer choices in life, and therefore forcing them to be with men because their role is in the house to take care of children that they sire with their husband. I don't know what MGTOW people you're talking about, but the ones I've seen and covered on this channel are mostly in favor of forcing women to be in traditional marital roles.
And it's revealing a substantial drop in U.S.
Libertarianism is conservative. What? Libertarianism is on the fucking right. Libertarianism, or libertarism, from French libertaire, meaning libertarian, is a political philosophy and movement that upholds liberty as a core principle. Libertarians seek to maximize political freedom and autonomy, which again is something that MGTOW people are not for. They complain about women all the time and the fact that they have the autonomy to go and choose and behave the way that they want to behave and pursue the goals that they want to pursue.
Men's testosterone levels since the 1980s, with average levels declining by about 1% per year. And at the same time, multiple European studies have found that sperm counts are sinking and that the musculoskeletal strength among young men is in free fall.
That probably has more to do with the fact that people spend a lot of time indoors nowadays as compared to, like, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, when people would, go outside and exercise and do physical activity. Now you can, like, do your TikToks. The only arm exercise these Gen Zers are getting is when they floss. You're welcome.
There are many theories as to why this is the case. Environmental, physical, with such things as obesity, and even the social transformation of gender roles. Whatever the case, you're not the man your father was.
Who cares? If overall testosterone levels lowered in men, who cares? I've known a lot of men in my life, for instance, who certainly seem to suffer from an excess in testosterone. Very ego-driven, aggressive individuals. They're not the best to be around. And if people happen to be born and have lower levels of testosterone, it's fine. Who cares?
Clearly. As previously stated, this transformation of men is having significant effects on not only gender relations, but upon society itself.
You'd probably enjoy WeHuntTheMammoth.com. It's a treasure trove of weird MGTOW and MGTOW adjacent stuff. Okay, I'll check it out. Hold on. Let me click the link and we can look at that a little bit later. Okay. Thank you.
In a very interesting hypothesis put forward by the author Roy Barzilai, who I have spoken with about this subject in his book, The Testosterone Hypothesis, How Hormones Regulate the Life Cycle of Civilizations.
I think I was talking with Baja Blast about this too, how the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Baja, she said, like, in genetics, like, the Y chromosome is shrinking over time or something along those lines. Clarify, maybe that would help, but like, just find that interesting if in, like, a million years of humans were to continue existing in some form, if there were basically just all one gender, one sex.
In this book, he outlines how testosterone plays in the aging, motivation, and the influence of all manner of behavior. The book notes, as I have touched upon, the dwindling presence of testosterone in current Western civilization, and I would add Japanese as well, and this explains the negative repercussions of...
I heard a door. Is she about to come in and talk about it? Ah, here we go. Thank you for coming to clarify.
I mean, there isn't much to clarify. It's, what Hannah said is correct at, like, as humans evolve, the Y chromosome has shrunk, and basically, the genes that aren't needed are gotten rid of. So a lot of the genes that, are like on the X chromosome can compensate for like the Y chromosome, except for, the SRY gene, which is the sex determining gene on the Y chromosome. So basically it's just evolution via conservation of energy. If you don't need it, it gets taken out over time.
Okay.
But yeah, there's not much to clarify. This is probably the only time I'll see you all. I'm working on a presentation. So have a fun time, chat.
Thank you, 4th year PhD candidate,
Thank you.
Baja Blast. Love you.
And I love you. What? What?
Chat has said I should kiss you, and I agree. Hope your presentation work goes well.
The
I don't think
society
anybody said that you should kiss me.
Oh, well, I guess I just wanted to.
I love you.
Love you too.
cultural elimination of testosterone-driven attributes. Civilizations are adapting living systems created by its members and are influenced by changes in them over time. Or put simply, the forces that drive the life cycles of human cultures and that form the engine of history, what the book argues is our hormones, well, these are the impetus for our history and, more importantly, for our future. Just for the casual observer, one look around and it's not hard to see that our civilization is descending into a pathological state of confusion, degradation, and directionlessness.
Literally everyone who's like a conservative in the history of planet Earth, or right wing, if you want to call it that, has thought this. It's never been true. Chill out.
It's eating itself from the inside out.
Things are changing and I don't understand it, so that must mean the apocalypse is happening. No. Chill out.
We've even lost the desire to replace ourselves, and it doesn't get any more.
Or, consider this. We don't feel the need to constantly breed and increase the size of the population because infant mortality rate and mortality rate in general is so good in the developed world that everyone doesn't have to have kids in order to sustain themselves, their farm, their community. Enough people have kids because they want them that you don't need to force yourself into a situation that you otherwise don't want to do. People have more freedom and agency than ever in what they want to do with their lives. Baja and I, for instance, neither of us wants to have kids. And that's fine. I don't think I'd be a good parent because I don't want kids. My dad was someone who didn't want kids, and he had me anyway, and he was an awful father. So everyone is better off with this new paradigm. People can have kids if they want them, if they're willing to take on that responsibility and be responsible parents who love their children. If you want to live your life and work on other things, I like doing this. I like communicating to people and trying to communicate my ideas to others and entertain, and that's great too. We're all human beings, and regardless of if you're a man, a woman, non-binary, whatever you happen to be, you get to do and be the best version of you, and you get to define that. And that's a fantastic, amazing thing. It's something that most people throughout human history have never had the opportunity to do. So, there are a lot of things to work on in society. We're obviously not perfect. We have issues of racism and sexism that still exist. We have issues of homophobia, transphobia, everything like that. But, nonetheless, here, you can try and be who you want to be. Again, we have inequality issues to work on, but no one's going to force you tomorrow to go and get married to someone just because you're 19, you better go do it and then start a family. It's not good. It's not healthy.
End times for a civilization when people refuse to have children. But given the fact that we now have tools that were absolutely unavailable to previous generations, if dialogue can take place, and that's a big if, maybe we can avert the crash of modern civilization that many key thinkers and intellectuals see upon our horizon.
Everyone's saying it. So many intellectuals are telling me, Donald, civilization is about to collapse. The best. They're the best.
And this will require a paradigm shift in thinking, because masculinity isn't toxic. It's the yin to femininity's yang, and what the real toxicity in our culture is the culture and gender wars promulgated by the real toxic ideologies that have been allowed to spread over the past several decades. And these ideas, similar to Maoism and communism, need to be put on the dustbin.
You're not my dad. Thank you for following.
Or we could just keep going in the same direction we're on and see where this mess that we've created for ourselves leads us.
Honestly, if we can tackle climate change, probably a better place. Seriously. The world, the one thing that's true throughout human history is that while we have our ups and downs, the general trend is upwards. I think Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And I think that's true. I think most people are moral, ethical people who care about the other people around them, and we want to work together to make society work for everyone. There are always going to be selfish people we have to deal with. There are always going to be people who want to use their own self-interests and put them above the interests of society and the people around them. But over time, we've continued to make a world that's better for people to live in. So, I don't know. I don't know. But, again, if climate change doesn't kill us all, which, hey, there's a good chance it might. I don't know. Maybe we are in the final salvo that is humanity. But even so, that would be because of our hubris and greed, not because men are eating soy or whatever red pillars seem to be worried about on the current day. MH Darkbeast says, I love his expert on the whole Hydro, whatever the fuck it is, believes vaccines have alien DNA in them, and that demon and witch semen are responsible for a bunch of health issues. Yeah, Donald Trump, like, tweeted that person or something. Am I on the traitors list? I don't think so. I'd like to be, though. Mock Turtleneck, 200 bits, sending you some bits so you don't have to work as an impressionist if this goes south. Funny. Funny. Thank you. Alright. John Doyle, famous Subway employee and man who lives with his parents, has made a video entitled, Why the Left Hates White People. You know, I don't know if anyone has noticed this, but I am a white person, so I'm very interested to hear why I hate myself. I just thought it had to do with my penis. But apparently it's a melanin thing, so that's good. We might save a bunch of money on some surgeries if he can convince me here.
We've heard quite a lot about systemic racism recently in the news and in the media, and so hopefully we're going to get a chance to talk about why that's just not true at all. But we've
disproving systematic racism with facts and logic. Nah. Nope.
We've also got a lot of different topics to get through, such as why white liberals hate themselves, whether Republicans can ever get the black vote, why everyone...
Probably because Republicans consistently vote for policies that not only harm minority communities, but show an outright disdain for their existence.
Thinks that fascists are bad, but communists are cool.
The things aren't mutually exclusive. You could be a fascist communist. I'd argue Stalin did a lot of fascist shit, right? You can, like, for instance, you could be a fascist capitalist or a fascist communist. But, at the end of the day, communism isn't intrinsically linked with fascism. It's just often been used in tandem. We see that in, Mao's China, Stalin's USSR. Stuff like that.
How Republicans set themselves up to lose with the left's morality, all sorts of stuff. So be sure to watch all the way through. Watch it in parts if you have to, but it's going to be very epic, so do stay tuned.
You think it's his mom holding the camera? Just curious. Mom, I need to film an intro for my YouTubes. Okay, John, I'll be out in a minute. Mom, hurry up, the lighting's right.
John Doyle in. Heck off, commie.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Heck Off Commie. Got a lot to talk about today. Very important video, very important topics. Seems like we've been gone for a while, but you know, that's just the cycle of things. I get stressed out about a bunch of stuff, I get depressed for a few days, and then I come back with a lot to say. And
John, that's sad. I'm sorry you're feeling depressed. Maybe see a counselor? Some people just get sad, but if you're legitimately getting, like, consistent depression, maybe talk to someone. They could help.
it usually makes her
That's not a joke. I'm not joking. Like, John Doyle, I disagree with him, and I think he's a fashy weirdo, but, like, if you're depressed, you should get help.
a pretty good video, so that's very epic. Might say some stuff that you like, might say some stuff that you don't like, but you're at the very least going to want to watch all the way through. I would not steer you wrong, but I thought that I should first announce the long-awaited and much requested Heck Off Commie Discord server is just hours away from launching. It's probably up right now. We've got
Ooh, boy. Let's join, shall we? Where is the... Oh, I don't see the Discord. Wah, wah. Maybe he has a link to it on his website? I don't see it. Let me see. What's his Facebook group look like? This is gonna be bad, I bet. God, I hate Facebook. I never touch it. I need posts made by other people. More community. Ayo. Damn. Not a ton. I need to find the Discord server. Where is it? Whatever. We'll just continue the video. I'll deal with the Discord later.
HOC's finest working on it. It's going to be available to members over at heckoffcommie.com. So if you want to join the Discord, you want to talk to the boys and myself about politics, it's only $4, plus you get access to a bunch of other cool stuff.
Oh, like it's a private Discord. Lovely.
Book recommendations, and to get to vote on video topics, stuff like that, and it helps support the channel, which of course is very epic. We've also been doing Zoom call lotteries for members, where basically a bunch of us just hop into a Zoom call and talk about stuff, because we got to stick together. Got to take care of each other, because no one else will. So that's epic. But yeah, I wanted to talk about race in America today, about the politics of racism, things of that nature. And these are things that are considered to be controversial by people online who aren't actually living in the real world, or who just want to like clutch their pearls at everything you say to try to make you look bad or look like a bigot, maybe get you deplatformed in the process. But I actually had a conversation like this at a grad party a few Sundays ago with a young lady who is very liberal, very far left. And I never drink. I don't like drinking, but I'll do it if I know it's going to be funny. Like if I'm going to drink, it's going to be to the point where it becomes someone else's problem.
Oh, that's not healthy, John. Like, there are different kinds of alcoholism. Even if you don't drink often, if when you do drink, it's to excess, that can be a form of alcoholism. That's not good.
So at the time I was like, yeah, let's get wasted and bring up Black Lives Matter to the drunk white girls who have been spamming social media.
Oh God, John's a drunk uncle in waiting. He's just gotta get older.
To end racism for the last 2 months. And for some reason, I can actually articulate myself better and at a faster rate when I'm drunk. I don't know why, but anyway, so I'm talking to this girl for like an hour, and it concluded with her saying, you know, I'm too messed up to have this conversation right now, but I just want to say that I agree with like 90% of
Furia Ferna, thanks for coming to the stream.
what you just said, and I'm sorry for misjudging you. And then Proxy Cameraman Matrix just stands up. He's like, the final red pill, John is reasonable. And I just thought that was very funny. But I also think the whole conversation is pretty emblematic of where we are as a country, because the people...
He's Ben Shapiro when he's drunk. True. Maybe literally, maybe that's like, it's like a Jekyll Hyde thing, When he's sober, he's John Doyle, but when he gets drunk, he just wakes up in Ben Shapiro's house, and it's him, and he's has a whole other second life. He's married to a doctor, but in his sober life, he works at Subway.
Who are the most invested in these narratives, whether it's Black Lives Matter or whatever the civil rights movement of the week is. These people are always...
Civil rights movement of the week. Black Lives Matter's been around for a decent while at this point. It's more popular now than it's ever been, but it's been around.
He's incredibly...
And also, this is just a continuation of the same civil rights movements that happened in, like, the 60s. It's not new.
Emotional. They are visibly invested emotionally into these things, and those who are inclined to agree with these narratives might mistake that investment as passion. And I'm sure that there are a lot of very passionate people fighting on behalf of these narratives, but really what it comes down to is that these people are hurting on the inside, completely irrespective of the problems which these narratives supposedly seek to solve. It's not a coincidence that these people will attack you, ostracize you, just act viciously towards you, but then if you get them a little drunk, you find out that they're deeply insecure about themselves.
I think everyone's pretty insecure about themselves on some level, right? That's fine.
Feel as though their lives have no meaning, etc. And that's one of the cores of liberalism. That is one of the largest predictors of a person identifying as left-wing.
John, how many liberal people have you ever gotten drunk in your entire life? I don't imagine you get invited to many social gatherings. So this anecdote of one person getting somewhat tipsy in front of you, even if she was sloshed, and her being insecure, says nothing to the validity of the people who are on the same side of the political spectrum as her. The projection of her insecurities onto everyone is ridiculous and baseless.
Which is their level of insecurity. If you're insecure about yourself, you have a negative perception of yourself, maybe rightfully so. You know that you're not going to fare as well in a competitive system compared to someone who's confident and capable, but you still have an instinct to survive and to achieve what you believe is the best case scenario for
Mock Turtleneck, thanks for gifting 5 subscriptions. I appreciate that.
yourself, whatever that may be. And so that would compel you to gravitate towards something like a system that can supposedly ensure equality and egalitarianism. And on top of that, it's a matter of identifying with struggle. What really woke me up to this was seeing one of my friends, a tweet from one of my friends a couple years ago. This guy was never really into politics at all, but he did have some self-esteem issues since he didn't really have any goals or interests or anything like that. He was out of shape.
What is with this idea that confidence and competence go hand in hand? There are some people who are incredibly confident with no skill, and some people with a decent knowledge base and ability level that question themselves constantly. This is the oh shoot, why am I blanking now? The whatever effect. Someone let me know. I forgot. I use it all the time, but I keep forgetting. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Thank you very much. That's what the Dunning-Kruger effect is, and it affects literally everyone.
Shape. And one day, I saw him reply to a tweet talking about, the families being separated at the southern border. And he said something like,
wait, why did he air quote families? They're families, and their children are being taken away from them and never returned. There's no this. It's their families, and the children are being taken away and not returned.
The people replying to this saying that it's a good thing have never had to face any legitimate struggle in their lives. And it clicked. It's like, that's what it is. These people are projecting their internal struggles and insecurities onto these movements because they believe that they understand the struggle that these groups believe that they're facing.
John, do you understand what empathy is? Empathy doesn't require that you literally feel that you have faced the exact same struggle as someone else. It's the ability to look at a situation that someone else is in, for instance, someone who's trying to bring their family over from Mexico to live a better life, and saying, oh wow, they're being not only arrested, but their families are being ripped apart and their children are being taken away and putting into detention centers for months and months and months at a time while they're being treated poorly, and that's disgusting. That's evil. It doesn't require me to have lived that experience to understand the living nightmare that is. John, give empathy a shot. It's part of the human experience.
and because it gives them a sense of purpose in their lives. And we know that left-wing people already have much higher rates of mental illness than do right-wing people, but human beings gravitate towards struggle. We need something to fight for. We need something to conquer. And when you've had everything handed to you, you almost have to create your own struggle by convincing yourself that you're part of like freaking Dumbledore's army, but you're not. You're not part of Dumbledore's army. That's why there's so many rich white kids out there doing this, especially the affluent white liberal females, the dregs of society.
Females. You can just call them women, John. You can just call them women. It's less weird.
The single.
And also, on what are you basing the fact that the picture that these two are wealthy? Like, why do you assume these two are wealthy? I don't know who these people are. She has a phone. She has a phone. But, like, everyone has a phone.
Greatest destructive force in the history of global politics. Because on the one hand, you've...
The greatest destructive force in the history of human politics. Nazis? Nah. Fascism? Nah. You know what's bad? People who are women getting to share their opinions. Yikes.
You've got Black Lives Matter. And it's a lot easier for Black Lives Matter and a lot more profitable for them to come out and say, hey, these issues that we're dealing with have nothing to do with choices that are made by Black Americans. And it has everything to do with white people and white people being racist.
Holy shit. Literally victim blaming black people for being killed by the police and being harassed by the police. Galaxy brain.
And if you disagree, it's because you're racist. Oh, and by the way, asserting that problems facing Black Americans are largely the result of choices made by Black Americans is less rude than asserting that they are caused by an entire race of people.
No, it's not, because you're basically saying that all black people have it coming, and they're doing things that are causing these to happen, and not that the police, who it's their job to handle situations in a reasonable way, aren't doing so. Like, what? It's on the police to arrest people appropriately, even if they're committing crimes. You don't get to kneel on someone's neck for, like, 20 minutes and murder them, and then be like, well, he had it coming. What? No. The police don't get to do extrajudicial killings. That's not how any of this works.
Because they're racist, or even less human. In other words, if I'm a dick for saying that the reason black men are more likely to go to prison than white men is because they're more likely to commit violent crimes, then you're an even bigger dick for saying it's actually just because white people are all racist.
Why? I'm not saying all white people are racist. I am saying, and along with, again, because I get my opinions on this from people who have lived experiences, not what right-wing people tell me on the internet. The fact that the police, A, over-police minority neighborhoods, B, disproportionately use force against people of color, and C, disproportionately kill them. These are substantiated facts.
But anyways, so on the one end, you have
white people also get lighter sentences for the same crimes. You can look that statistic up too. Fun fact. Not fun as much as it is horrifying.
Black Lives Matter, and they can make a lot more money and get a lot more power because remember...
And generational poverty, yes.
They're Marxists by completely and totally absolving black Americans from any responsibility for their actions.
Literally none of that is what Black Lives Matter is about. The disingenuous straw-manning is so blatant.
And instead placing the blame on white people, America, and police officers. And then on the other hand, you have people such as...
Pretty sure it's mostly police officers. It's police officers and those who refuse to acknowledge the problems that are actually apparent within our current system. Oops.
The white liberal women and the soy boys going along with the narrative because they have no meaning in their lives and they're
soy boys? Galaxy brain.
Insecure, and they want a community that they believe can resonate with their self-perceived struggle. That is why women and weak feminine men are the most likely to virtue signal.
Virtue signaling is anything I don't like. If you hold an opinion I don't like, it's virtue signaling. John, have you considered that people just disagree with you? You don't need to come up with a word or use a word that someone else came up with to try and discredit someone's opinion without actually addressing what they're saying. It's the most ridiculous dodge I think people on the right have ever come up with. Virtue signaling. I don't want to actually address the point you're making, so I'll just say you don't actually mean it. It's presuppositionalism for right-wingers. That's not... In fairness, a lot of Christians use presuppositionalism are also right-wingers, but I'm talking specifically politics.
If you are physically weak, you're high in agreeableness, then you need people to like you, because if they don't like you, they're just going to walk all over you. And so they pathologically virtue signal so as to advertise themselves as the most noble, most virtuous people in society, literally as this sort of like...
John, people just like being moral beings and like to share their opinions with others, especially in a world where social media is such an important tool in changing hearts and minds, in changing the opinions of society as a whole. So if you see, for instance, a ton of people saying, hey, look into this police violence, look into the fact that police get away with murder, look into the fact that police disproportionately hurt people of color more so than white people who commit the same crimes, and a bunch of people say it, it's effectively a signal boost, and other people can look at that and change their opinions or get to know the issue. That's a good thing. That's not virtue signaling, it's effective messaging, and I think you just don't like it because you know it's effective. So, maybe be a little more genuine in your arguments instead of just getting mad that the left wing is better at messaging than you guys.
Quasi-survival instinct to try to put themselves in the most optimal...
Oh, the lupine emote got approved. Nice.
...position possible. And so the reason I bring this up is because someone like me or you would have a very difficult time having an honest conversation with these people because they don't want to leave their mobs, and because any concession on their part would require a consideration of the fact that they're not actually that virtuous and what they're doing isn't actually that groundbreaking, let alone making any progress towards actually solving the problems. You would literally have to get one of these people one-on-one and probably a little bit drunk for them to really tell you what's on their mind. Virtually everything else is just public display.
John, if you want to get drunk with me and have me yell at you about what a fascist you are, by all means. We both live in Michigan. I can pick you up after your shift at Subway is over. We can drive to your mom's house and just get hammered. Sounds great.
And that's actually pretty dangerous for people like you and me, because when you're that emotionally invested into something, because your entire sense of self is derived from it, you're not looking at the opposition as a human being who just happens to disagree with you.
Wait, that's exactly what you're doing. You're saying that people who disagree with you are virtue signalers and insecure and using things like Black Lives Matter to make up for the fact that you think that they're insecure. You're doing that. John, that's what you're doing.
You're looking at them and everything that surrounds them as an enemy that has to be leveled and buried. And we are just now starting to see how dangerous that actually is. And I don't
want you to be leveled and buried. I just think you're wrong, and I'm going to advocate for policies and positions that make sure what you believe aren't brought to fruition. Because again, John, not only are you a fascist, but you don't think women should have the right to vote. So, yeah, as someone who believes in, like, society that has an open democracy, you are bad, and your positions are shit, and deserve all the ire that they get. Ooh, that rhymed. I guess I'm a poet, and I didn't even know that.
I think it's going away anytime soon, unfortunately. And that's why one of the things I've been saying recently is conservatives really need to get away from this whole, wow, look at these crazy...
He has said that. He said that women getting the right to vote, in a video a while back, he has said, like, women getting the right to vote is one of the greatest mistakes of the 20th century. You know, not the Holocaust.
Liberals, haha, so triggered. It's just a political disagreement. What, you don't want to sit down and have a conversation with me? You don't want to have a dialogue with me? No, they don't. The ones in...
None of you actually want to sit down and have a reasonable conversation. Stop acting as though your concern trolling is actually an attempt to have a good faith conversation about the issue. All you want to do is waste people's time, and when actual statistics get brought up to you, you will ignore them or not read them. So, please, for the love of God, Stop acting like you are the good faith people in this argument. You aren't.
In your neighborhood want you off their social media friends lists, and the ones out there rioting in major cities want you dead. Do not think—
Does his mom know that? I guess it depends on how soundproof his room is. I don't know if she can hear him.
for a second that they would let someone like you or someone like me live in their utopian society. So it might be time to stop sharing infographics on Facebook.com about how many people have been killed by communist regimes and realize that you would be in that statistic. But it's not going to be the government that kills you. It's going to be mobs of people. They're going to show up at your home. You're going to try your best to pick off a few with your AR-15, your $1,200 AR-15 that you customized and built yourself. But at the end of the day, you are going to be killed, and the media will ignore it, and the police won't be there to help you, and the government will do absolutely nothing about it.
John, do you think that this fantasy of yours is just a tad bit hysterical? Like, yeah, are you a racist, fascist, sexist shitbag? Sure. I wouldn't kill you, though, in Minecraft. I just don't want your positions to be brought to fruition. That's it. It's pretty simple.
And I thought that we'd get into this a little bit later, but it fits better now, which is that whenever conservatives are discussing who's really the enemy, whenever we talk about, hey, you know, off the record, what's really going on here? Who's really in charge? We still only identify the enemy within the approved frame. Like, I get emails every day from well-intentioned people with links to these forums talking about how World War II never ended. John, the Nazis have taken over the U.S. government. Or, John, wake
What? No.
up, look at Antifa. They're fascists. And it's like...
Yes. Truly. It's like the end of Scooby-Doo. We pulled off the mask, and it turns out the fascists were really the people fighting against fascism the whole time. What? That's insanity.
I get that. I get what you're saying. I don't like Nazis. I don't like fascists. They don't like me. But if we were really fighting those guys, we'd have no idea about it. You get what I mean? Like, my grandpa served alongside General Patton in World War II, which is something I'm very proud of. So by
Why? You didn't do that.
the time I was 3 years old, I could tell you that the Nazis are the bad guys. By the time any American leaves middle school, they can tell you that the Nazis are bad and that fascism is bad.
Yeah. So what happened to you, John?
And of course that's true, but it really makes you wonder why we aren't taught the same about communists.
John, people learn about communism in school and the awful things that happened under Stalin. These things are taught. What are you talking about? Not to mention the culture of America and its pop culture in general, which discusses these things constantly. Like, the biggest show of the year last year, or maybe it was this year, I don't remember, was Chernobyl, which had huge themes about how scared everyone was in the USSR. Like, the death of Stalin also came out a couple years ago, and that's a very funny movie. Like, everyone knows these things.
Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong, Pol Pot, Fidel Castro, or any one of these figures who have...
Like, have you missed the entirety of American pop culture from the 50s to the 80s? Have you not seen Rocky IV? I must break him. Or I must break you. If he dies, he dies. Ivan Drago. So, maybe watch that movie and understand that American culture has talked about the ills of the USSR and Mao and everyone forever. This is not a foreign concept to people.
have killed millions upon millions more than Nazis or fascists, and I have to stress, this is not a...
No, it's I must break you. Let's take a look.
I must break you.
I must break you. Nailed it.
defense of those, obviously. The point is that for whatever reason, we're taught that Nazis and fascists are the worst things ever because of mass murder and unprecedented and incomprehensible human rights violations. But we
Stalin was also a fascist. These things aren't mutually exclusive. What don't you get? I would argue the Nazis were, how do I put this, more the... They fit the mold of fascism more cleanly, and they become an incredible example of it. But that doesn't mean that But that doesn't mean that Stalinist Russia and its policies were not also that, right?
learned virtually nothing about the same and even vastly worse crimes coming from communists. And the reason for that is that two of the biggest features of fascism were that it was opposed to communism and that it was nationalist.
That was more specific to the fact that Germany didn't... Oh, God, it's complicated. Germany was a fascist state that was anti-communist, and they didn't like the Russians, but they also saw them as a geopolitical threat, for obvious reasons. So they centered themselves in a very negative on Stalin and Russia way. Oh, the Surfs TV, thank you for rating, wow. Wow, so many people. Thank you so much. We're talking about John Doyle and the fact that he's mad that communists aren't as vilified as Nazis, because apparently John Doyle has missed the entirety of American pop culture. So anyway, for instance, I'm a leftist. I can say Stalin bad, because indeed, Stalin was fucking bad. It has nothing to do with whether or not we should villainize Nazis, though, because Nazis were also fucking bad, John!
That's right, capitalistic
And so for conservatives such as myself, who are opposed to communism and who believe that America should put the interests of her people first,
Spicy takes, I know.
well, now we
In fairness, I did listen to a tanky the other day that was very pro-Stalin, so...
can be accused of being fascists. And we've already learned that the worst thing that you can be is a fascist.
I mean, it's certainly not a good thing to be, John. Are you pro-fascism? Let me rephrase. I know you're kind of pro-fascism, but you at least usually have the mask on, right? So, fascism is bad, and many of the things that Stalin did were incredibly fascistic. And pop culture has made that clear, again, from Rocky IV to, like, the 1950s horror film, I Married a Communist. Like, American pop culture is full of this stuff. Mock Turtleneck, thank you so much for gifting 5 Tier 1 subs. Let me see, I married a communist. Movie. Where is it? I married a communist. Was that just the tagline? I need a trailer. Was there a trailer for this movie, or was it just a bad B movie? The Woman on Pier 13. Oh, it was a novel. Was this maybe the Woman on Pier 13 trailer?
That's right, capitalistic propaganda.
Let's see the trailer for this movie. Thank you, everyone who's following. I really appreciate that. Dead man can't talk.
No! No!
All right. Well, Banning, I saw what he wanted me to see. Get your hands off her, Bailey. There's a phone in here. Call the police. If you call the police, your husband will be arrested for murder.
50s, the Red Scare, communist propaganda.
Do you have a comparable piece of the Soviet propaganda that applies specifically to the Army?
Well, I'd like to show you on that a film of the...
That's them watching communist... Here we go. The Communist Threat. Here's an example of communist, anti-communist propaganda from the 50s.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Tankies do suck, I agree. It's just weird to me that John thinks that America has demonized Nazis, but not demonized communists. If anything, I'd argue after World War II, Nazis became a punchline for quite a while. Like, look at, Hogan's Heroes. This was like a sitcom in the 50s or 60s that involved people, and I'm not joking if you've never heard of this. This was American POWs in a Nazi prison camp, and it was like a sitcom where the Nazis were the bumbling villains. Like, after World War II, America made fun of Nazis. You see this also in The Producers, Mel Brooks movie, right? whereas communist continued to be demonized all throughout the Cold War. In many ways, understandably, because Stalin was a shitbag.
And so if you're a communist, you're in a nice little position now because no one knows anything about you or your history, and things that would make it harder for you to succeed, such as an opposition to communism or a love of America, can now be labeled as fascism. And we all know that fascism is bad, but
fascism is bad.
Communism isn't. In fact,
no one in America in the general population views communism in a positive light. Now, I'm a leftist. I'm a socialist. I think that communism in theory could work. I think in practice it could work. However, the way that it has been applied in the world, unfortunately, due to fascistic dictators, has given it a pretty bad rap. And most people in the general population, of course, understandably, see communism and socialism through that lens, despite the fact that, of course, the things that Stalin did were incredibly fascistic, right? Same thing with Mao. Killed millions of people. They were fucking awful. And an even smaller amount of people view those things as positive, and we call those people tankies, and they're the worst. So,
in fact, it sounds rather nice. A society where everyone is equal, state-enforced equality. Wait, duh! That seems so obvious. Why didn't we think of that right off the bat? And that's why I hate the term radical left. Trump and a lot of other conservative figures have used this term a lot. And that term needs to be emphasized as a modifier. Like, we need to emphasize that we're not talking about the radical left as separate from the rest of the left. We need to emphasize that the left in general has gone completely radical.
Yes, because when I think about the radical left, I think about Joe Biden? No, the left in this country is very center at best, especially compared to the rest of the world. Of course, now we have younger people who haven't grown up on Cold War propaganda, and while we recognize the fact that the way that certain things were implemented and the fact that the USSR was run horribly by a dictator is bad, perhaps certain socialist or communistic policy changes could be beneficial to society, at least in such a way to make sure that people have equal opportunity, if not equal outcome, right? At the very least, to make sure that people like Jeff fucking Bezos don't exist, who has more money than anyone can spend in a million lifetimes.
And notice how no one cares. Far right. Right-wing extremist. But on the left, nobody panics because...
That's because in this country, when there have been terrorist attacks done domestically, they're typically done by right-wingers. Excuse me. Like the Oklahoma City bombing. Things like that. I'm pretty sure the anthrax scare was also that. No, not that. There was another one. What the heck was it that I'm thinking of? Let me look it up. Right-wing terrorist attacks. And you also see this today with, like, mass shooters, right? Is there just, like, a Wikipedia article? Thanks, Wikipedia. As of 2020, right-wing terrorism accounted for the majority of terrorist attacks and plots in the United States. Gee, John, I wonder why people are more concerned about right-wing terrorism than left-wing terrorism. Jesus. I'd love to see an example of left-wing terrorism in the United States. And people, like, rioting is not the same thing as terrorism, John. So maybe think it through before you say your words next time.
Because it's all part of the plan. Show me someone on the left who has disavowed the rioting and the destruction. Anyone in politics or in the media. Show me one.
There have been... Jesus Christ. People disavowing rioting. Now, people's opinions on whether or not rioting is, let's see, Richmond area activist disavows weekend riots. There's one. Jerry Nadler calls violence from Antifa a myth. So, there's at least one. That's what you asked for. There's one. Ayo.
On both
pretty
Saturday
simple. Google things before you say them, John. People's opinions on the role of violence in various social movements is going to differ. right? Especially in a situation like we have right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, where continually in cities all around the country, there have been protests, both peaceful and otherwise, and in many places, absolutely nothing has changed, right? In some places, literally, like, the mayor has come to march with these people. Like, Mayor, what are you marching for? You're the one who's in charge of the policing system. You don't have to march. We're marching to get your attention so you make the change. So, in a situation where not only protesting is becoming ineffective because people are doing nothing, but when peaceful protest is encountered by the police with violence, we've seen so many acts of violence by the police in the last few months against peaceful protesters. At what point does it become a necessity to ramp things up? I don't know. I'm not going to answer that question because I think it's a complicated question that doesn't have a definitive answer. But I do understand why some people view the need to escalate the situation. It's not a black and white issue.
And the reason you can't show me one is because they're perfectly fine with it. Maybe they don't want to be the ones out there on the front lines getting tear gassed or beating people half to death, but they agree with the ends, and so the means are justified. That's why liberals like Dave Rubin, Elon Musk, and
Did you just call Dave Rubin fucking liberal? What? And Elon Musk, well, I think he uses that veneer of like, oh, I do electric cars and I'm interested in space and I like memes. Haha. Just ignore the fact that I have, just gotten a compensation package 10 times more than any CEO in the country. Hee. Oh, did I just make another $1 billion even though my company isn't profitable? Whoopsie. Here's a meme. These people are not liberal, John. No.
Joe Rogan are being adopted.
Joe Rogan, a liberal? What?
By the right as figures. They're
yes, famous liberal Jordan B. Peterson.
There's nothing funny about the tools.
This list is ridiculous.
Liberals who
Cotton Candy 903 with 5 bits. The police violence this year has been so bad that I had a major anxiety attack and depression spiral. Yeah, it's been crazy. There's entire websites, and I'll show you guys this. Police violence spreadsheet. Someone's been compiling this website. Let me see if I can find a link to it. Backup of all the videos. Is this it? Here is a Google Drive account which catalogs, look at how far this scrolls, endless amounts of police violence taking place on peaceful protesters from the past few months. I'm going to put this in the chat in case you'd like it. There you go. Hello.
You saw that Lupine's emote got
Yes, I did.
who have rejected the radicalization of the left, but they're still liberals fundamentally, which just goes to show how far things have gone in this country, like towards.
In what way is Dave Rubin a liberal? Genuinely. Is John Doyle just calling him a liberal because he's gay and has a husband? That doesn't make him liberal. It makes him a gay conservative. I think even Dave has dropped the whole, like, I'm a classical liberal shtick. I think he said he's conservative now.
It's the left. And that's why this whole strategy on the right of, well, Antifa are the real fascists, or the left is using Nazi tactics, is so utterly self-defeating because you're agreeing with their moral framework. You're accepting their TOS. You're agreeing with them that the worst thing ever is fascism, which they only spread because it distracts people from what they're.
Fascism is one of the worst fucking things ever. Communism in and of itself is not. If you have a fascistic communist regime, it would be. But again, fascism is about the methods by which you implement your policy. Communism is just a policy or a series of policies, not the way in which you implement them.
They're doing, and it makes you, a normal conservative, seem like a Nazi, and then you think you can, like, beat them at their own game? Do you think that you can go to Portland and tell the people torching the city, well, you guys are actually acting quite a lot like Mussolini's black shirts. Maybe if you sat down with me over some coffee, we could, no, they wouldn't listen.
Hey, the government hasn't made the changes that are necessary to reform the police. And again, I think I read an article yesterday, too, that, hold on, rioting, White supremacist. I read an article the other day about how some place the rioting was like a thing that was started by white supremacists. Police in Richmond riots investigated by white supremacists disguised as Black Lives Matter. So, just pointing it out. Minneapolis, umbrella man who smashed windows during George Floyd protest was a white supremacist trying to incite riots. So again, stop acting like the majority of people in this movement are inciting riots, when it's not the case.
Listen to you, they wouldn't learn anything. You would learn what it's like to have your ribs cracked by a dozen different pairs of feet, but these aren't fascist tactics. These are communist tactics. How do I know? Because the communists did the same thing, and because these people are communists, or are acting on behalf of communists.
No.
To co-opt their language and their framework is to accept defeat. You are agreeing with their morality, and the problem with that is that their morality does not include your intrinsic value or dignity. They don't have an unconditional view of humanity. Just look at their attitudes towards abortion.
Okay. Abortion is not a human rights issue except in the fact of when the mother isn't allowed to have an abortion. Come on, John. We've had this discussion multiple times, although I'm sure John's never seen my videos. Nonetheless, this has been explained to you many times. Also, the left is perfectly able to recognize that every human being has human rights. However, if you have opinions like John does, for instance, John has said that he thinks that one of the worst things to happen in the 20th century was women getting the right to vote. You don't see the inherent value in human life. Therefore, it becomes necessary to fight against the things that you believe in, because if you are allowed to win, then people's humanity and our collective agency are being denied, right? And that would be a bad thing. So you can have your job at Subway, John, and you can live with your parents and do whatever you want with your life, as long as it's not infringing on the rights of others, and you need to be recognizing systematic injustices that happen within the system that we live in, which is something you're incapable of doing, apparently.
They believe that in order...
He did say that, yes.
...for a human being to...
And he's alluded to it many times, that he thinks that women are irrational and therefore shouldn't be allowed to vote. Mock Turtleneck with 500 bits. Wow, you're doing a lot of stuff today. Thank you so much for supporting the channel.
To achieve personhood, it isn't enough that they are a human being or that they're alive. They have to meet certain arbitrary criteria, whether it be sentience.
Arbitrary criteria? All these leftists hate me just because I don't think 50% of the population should have the right to vote. Do you hear yourself? Come on.
Or viability, etc. And what that means is that being a human and being alive is not enough to afford you your God-given human rights, especially because they don't believe in God or objective morality. And so basically what it comes down to is a subjective view of human value where those in power decide whether those not...
Oh, he did say sentience is arbitrary, didn't he? That's not arbitrary, John. That's a reasonable expectation in terms of a standard for when you should care about whether something is a person or not. I wouldn't even say sentience as much as sapience, although they both play into each other. What?
Not in power get to live based on what is convenient to maintaining their...
What sounds arbitrary to me is when people on the right are like, did you know it? However many weeks they have a heartbeat? Okay? So, a lot of things have hearts. That doesn't mean I consider them human beings.
Their status. And we see this when they support a mother's decision to slaughter her child 4 weeks before...
Slaughter.
Before he's born, since his existence is an inconvenience, or when...
Why, it's always so disingenuous when people on the right talk about abortion, because they never do, like, a reasonable thing, because most abortions take place early on in the pregnancy. Most of them do. Not that it matters that much, but frankly, it is the case. Most of them take place in the first trimester, some in the second, and very few in the third, and it's typically because of medical reasons. You typically don't get that far into the pregnancy without making a decision on whether or not you want to keep or terminate the child. Whatever. Late-term abortions are incredibly rare, but it's the thing they always go to because they believe it has the most emotional impact, despite the fact that they are the least common type of abortion. It's so disingenuous.
And past regimes have slaughtered the political opposition because their existence was inconvenient. It's all the same, and the only thing preventing you from ending up in an anonymous pile of bones is that they don't have power yet. But they're getting there. So the point is,
fascists like John project their want to kill their enemies onto other people. That's why he says things like, oh, the left, if they got into power, would want to kill you. No. Nope. Not the case. Stop projecting, please, John.
Is that we have to abandon their moral framework, which has taught us
old enough to know better, to know more better. Thanks for gifting 5 tier 1 subs. I appreciate that.
From infancy through their control of education and media, we have to stop calling them the real fascists and start calling them what they are, which is militant, anti-white communists. Who are the real fascists? No one. But these people are working on behalf of something with a much worse and more...
I'd love to hear how communism is anti-white. Please, explain.
Evil record than fascism, and they have a lot of power, and they're getting more of it every year. And again, this is not a defense of fascism. The point of this is that the whole reason we have to
with 500 bits. Thank
focus
you.
on fascism is so people like me and you look bad when we stress the importance of things like putting America first or opposition to communism.
Do I think he actually has a victim complex, or this is in bad faith? That's a good question. I'm not sure as far as John is concerned. He's still a pretty young person. Like, I think he's like 20 or something along the lines of that, so it's hard to tell. I think it's a little bit of a mix of both. I think he genuinely believes some of it, but I think he exaggerates because he thinks it'll make his argument better. Fascists very rarely will argue in good faith, so there's certainly an amount of his rhetoric that is a scare tactic, but some of it, I certainly believe he buys his own bullshit.
And that's why I even have to clarify this in the first place. But a couple more important things to note about the conservative moral strategy. We're going to get into racism as a political strategy in just a second, but a really great example between how the left uses morality versus how the right uses morality is the difference between their branding and their advertising. And this was a point made recently by my friend Darren Beatty during a podcast with Chris Buskirk of America.
Defeating neoliberal moral imperialism. Yes. Folks, don't you know when you post something on your Facebook or your Twitter about how Black Lives Matter, it's literally the same as going into someone else's country, subjugating the people there who are native inhabitants, and stealing their resources for your own financial gain. Genius.
American Greatness, which you should listen to. But anyways, the point is, one of the quintessential emblems of the American right is the Gadsden flag, the famous "Don't Tread on Me" flag. Many of us probably have had one hanging on display at some point or another.
Which is hilarious. I think a modern version of this would be, "Please tread on me, Daddy," and then it would be a cop boot.
And what that flag means is, of course, leave me alone. I come in peace, basically. It's dating back to the American Revolution, and the coiled rattlesnake represents a willingness to defend oneself if necessary. It's basically saying, I don't want to attack you, but if you attack me, then, I'm going to hit you back. Like if you were to step on a rattlesnake and get bitten as a result. Now, what we found out as conservatives is that if you wait until you get stepped on to fight for your country and preserve everything that made it great, you'll end up fighting back at a total disadvantage because you've been crushed with the weight of 70 years of policy that is antithetical to your values. Virtually the entire media and academic establishment and the vast majority of corporate America and the ruling class. And now you're standing up.
Have you considered you're wrong, John? And I'm not trying to make a fallacy here. I'm not saying that because the majority of people disagree with you, that you are inherently wrong. But the fact is, John is wrong, right? He's wrong on gay rights and women's rights and Black Lives Matter. Have you ever for 1 second introspected and considered whether or not the positions you hold are actually congruent with the reality in which we live and beneficial to the people who are affected by those policy viewpoints? Because it seems to me that you've just decided, I'm right. Look, I have posters on my wall, I got a rifle, and a bobblehead of Jesus. I love capitalism. Yum, yum, yum. Like, have you considered that your viewpoint might be antithetical to the majority opinion, not because you're being oppressed, but because you are actively holding positions that would be harmful to people in society? Just a thought.
Brushing yourself off like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. You just made yourself a big mistake there, pal. No, they didn't. You did.
Jimmy Big Nut says, hey, haven't tuned in since 2018. What happened? Came out as trans. So, there's an update for you. Been on hormones for a little over a year, working on my transition. I still have to do voice training, but, you know, I'm working on it.
You made the mistake. You were unresponsive while they took your country away from you because you were operating under the insane assumption that something as great as America could be preserved with a handshake. You were a mighty rattlesnake. You were the best in the world, and you watched them begin to dismantle your country, and you said, hey, knock it off or else I'll bite you. And they were like, let's equip
How is your country being dismantled? Be specific.
Ourselves a bit better before we go all out. And so now what's happening is they control literally all of the relevant infrastructure in the country, and you, the rattlesnake, are just waking up to this, but before you can even get yourself in striking position, they just come at you with a 10-foot tree pruner and just cut your stupid rattlesnake head off. You're no longer a threat to them. Now you compare this to the recent branding on the left and the moral imperialism that they have. They've been
saying thanks for the 100 bits.
Things like white silence is violence. And what that statement means is if you don't fight alongside us, you're bad, and you are the enemy. It is akin to violence.
Yes, it's the view that not actively understanding and being an ally to people who are lesser off, who have been disadvantaged due to some arbitrary thing like the color of their skin or the community they grew up in, that is violence. Standing by while oppression takes place is being culpable for said oppression. Now, you can disagree with that if you want. I don't. I think it's true. I think that people have been complicit in the violence enacted upon minority communities in this country because they just sit by and watch it happen and don't use their power to vote and voice their opinions in order to help. I think things have gotten better. I think the Black Lives Matter movement, which has gotten so much more popular in the last year because of all the obvious, like, shows of violence by the police, I think those are good things. It's good that people are realizing that allyship is important.
And if you look at this purely from the perspective of rhetorical strategy, which is something that the left is vastly better at doing than the right, it's a powerful message because it asserts itself. It's saying this is correct. It is imperative that you not only agree, but that you also support us, because otherwise...
Are declarative statements fascism? What a bold take.
You're a bad person and you're complicit in violence. And so when you compare that to something like, hey, just don't tread on me. Do whatever you want, man. It's all good. Just don't tread on me, you know? Do whatever, though. It's easy to see why the left...
Yes, conservatives famously leaving people alone. For instance, of course, they totally wanted gays to be allowed to get married. They totally are okay with trans people being who they are. They're totally cool with interracial marriage back in the day when that was illegal. Yeah, conservatives, famous for keeping their nose out of other people's business. Genius.
To wins. You look at what's happening in your country. You know it's wrong. Maybe you're not too sure about things like fiscal policy or foreign policy, but you know that you are correct on American exceptionalism, on the realities of biology, on the value of human life, the importance of preserving the innocence of children, the importance of preserving America, which means preserving its culture and its heritage. You know that. These are not up for debate. They're the very foundation of our country and of our way of life. And given that, you have to defend them with the...
There are a lot of things that were the foundation of our country that we're better off leaving in the past. Slavery is a pretty good example of this. Killing tons of First Peoples and taking their land. Like, it's okay to admit that despite the fact that the Founding Fathers had a decent amount of good ideas in terms of a set of rules for governance, they also ended up, you know, capitulating to the South and agreeing to things like the 3/5 Compromise. Not good. No bueno.
The same aggression and drive that the left is using to destroy them. No more watching Fox News and making jokes about, well, this is what happens when everyone gets a participation trophy. No, you actually have to be active now. We don't have time for anything else anymore. You have to defend America.
Sounds like you're trying to incite right-wing riots, John. You notice the hypocrisy there? kind of funny.
With the same energy, drive, and confidence that the left is using to destroy it. Otherwise, we lose. That's why we've been losing. We know that we're correct, but being correct isn't enough. You actually have to fight. No more, don't tread on me. We're replacing that with, actually, I will tread on you. As a matter of fact, I think I will tread on you because you've been treading on us for decades now, and I'm not exactly a fan of channel surfing between, hey, look, we're abusing children, but it's colorful and we're zany, so it's okay, and this just in, people who hate America burn down more great American cities.
Oh no! The statue was taken down and someone threw ketchup on it. The statue won't do the freedom if it has ketchup on it. It's a fucking statue, John. Who cares?
And destroy more tributes to great American heroes. No one has done a thing about it. Now, back...
Or as I like to call them, slave owners.
To Trump is bad, the show. We need to practice moral imperialism. Not don't tread on me, but abortion is murder. Not don't tread on me, but drag queen story hour is child abuse, etc. You get the point.
Drag queen story hour is not child abuse, John. There's nothing inherently sexual about drag queens. Kids don't even know what drag queens are. They just think it's a woman who's come in and has a very interesting look, and they do a fun little story. It's whatever. Grow up, John.
Point. It's not like we're just arbitrarily deciding morality and enforcing that. It's not our morality. It's objective morality as defined by God, and that's the fundamental difference.
Oh, we're going for theocracy now, too, on top of it. And as we all know, theocracies around the world aren't fascistic at all, and always turn out super well for those who live in them.
We're serving God, and they're serving themselves. They are militant, anti-white communists, and that's the other thing. This is...
You know, the last time we heard people shouting about, you know, people being anti-white communists and talking about how they have the objective moral right that's given to them by God, I think they were, you know, waving swastika flags and goose-stepping around Europe. So maybe don't, you know, co-opt rhetoric from literal Nazis. That would be great.
This is something I know we're all curious about because it affects a lot of us, but for some reason, very few people on the right will talk about this, and that is the question of why does the left hate white people? Why do they hate white people?
The left does not hate white people. I'm a white person, and I'm not just a liberal, I'm a leftist. Don't hate white people. Not at all.
And I'm not interested in proving to you that these people hate white people.
Oh, wow. I guess you don't really care about having a sound argument then. That's cool.
If you don't understand that by now, then you should open your eyes.
That's a strong argument. I can't demonstrate this thing. However, if you don't agree with me, you're stupid. Very mature.
They're calling for all white people to be killed. They're saying that all white people are inherently racist.
I found 2 tweets on the internet that said kill all white people. Therefore, it's what the entirety of the left wants.
They're saying that white people are subhuman. They're teaching their children to not trust white children. They're saying that we should kill ourselves. They're saying that you're a literal plague on the earth. And in case you couldn't tell, this is not rhetoric that is characteristic of good intentions. This is not rhetoric.
It's also not characteristic of the left in general, whether we're talking about liberals or actual leftists. These are the opinions of fringe weirdos. Not something that's even worth commenting on.
That suggests a longing for peace and equality and coexistence. They hate you, and it's because you're white. And you might be wondering, like, why would the left hate me because I'm white? Most of the radical leftists are white, too. Well, like, wouldn't that mean that they'd hate themselves? Yeah, that's exactly what that would mean. And that is exactly the case. Let's wind the clocks back to what we were talking about earlier. What causes people to be leftists? Self-loathing, which leads them to hate other white people as well.
Or, as I like to call it, empathy, which has nothing to do with self-loathing. I'm pretty okay with myself, especially after I came out and I'm living my life the way that I want to. I'm fine with myself. It's great. It has nothing to do with self-loathing. I just have empathy for others and understand that people have different lived experiences than me. So when the black community comes out and says, with a mostly unified voice that says, hey, we're being systematically targeted by the law systems in this country, both police and the court system, I don't go, well, I've never seen it. I go, oh, okay, well, you're all, you know, relaying your lived experience to me, so that seems reasonable. And then also seeing evidence to that fact, the countless, like, unwarranted deaths by police on unarmed black people in this country. It's ridiculous. Come on.
Well, we know that liberals are more willing to murder someone for the greater good if that person has a white-sounding name rather than a black-sounding one. We know that they believe that it is more plausible that black people are genetically superior to white people with regards to intelligence than would be the reverse case. We know that they believe non-white people should not have to pay more for home insurance due to living in a high-risk area, but are neutral about whether white people should. And we know that they would support censoring research showing that white people are more intelligent, more than they would support censoring research showing the same of black people. And we know that they are the only group, white liberals are the only group who on the net prefer other racial groups to their own. And that's talking about in-group bias, which is something that we all have. It doesn't mean that we're bad people. It's just that we tend to have a bias towards...
Steven Neptune Man with 10 bits. Don't a lot of young white guys become conservatives because they're radicalized? And they're radicalized because they're self-loathing? Yeah. Again. Projection.
People who look like us, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to act on that bias. I mean, there's even research that shows that you can develop in-group favoritism between groups of people by assigning them to different groups based on something as arbitrary as a coin toss. So it's pretty easy to make people get territorial and tribal like this. And statistically speaking, black people have the strongest in-group bias, followed by Asian people, Hispanic people, and then finally non-liberal white people. And then liberal white people actually have a net negative in-group bias, which means they literally have a bias against themselves because of who they are. And because the bias is so strong and contrary to what we'd expect and what is demonstrated by literally every other group of people, it's evident that white liberals seriously resent themselves, and it's because of who they are. It's because they're white people. Maybe that's why they've also been found to...
Or, how about this? If we're talking about, for instance, people of color having a strong in-group bias, probably because they feel solidarity with each other. They're minorities in a country that often doesn't treat them well, and that's something that they have an inherent bond over. In terms of white liberals having a negative in-group bias, it could have to do with the fact that I end up seeing people like John Doyle, like Ben Shapiro, like Donald Trump, or whatever, every day, talking out of their ass, being weirdly white supremacist and having an issue with that, and it can create a bias. I don't feel I'm that way because I don't feel like I project that onto all white people, but I could see how that could be the case. You gotta look at things in context without just putting statistics out there without any information about why they might be the way that they are.
Show less sympathy towards poor white people after hearing leftist rhetoric about white privilege, while the sympathy towards poor black people stays the same. They have a bias against themselves, which we would typically just label as low self-esteem, which would also make sense because liberals have much lower self-esteem than do conservatives. And
I would argue that comes out of the fact, and this is, again, completely anecdotal, so take this or leave this, but from the conservatives I've known, including my father in my life, conservatives tend to attract narcissists, and narcissists are incapable of seeing things that are negative in themselves. Everyone who's not a narcissist has some sort of healthy dose of self-doubt. Not to an unhealthy level, but I think we all have a reasonable amount that says, like, hey, I have faults, I have weaknesses, here are things that I'm not good at. Whereas the right tends to attract people who think, I'm hot shit. I'm amazing all the time. I'm the greatest. Why would I feel self-doubt? I'm amazing. And that's not necessarily a positive character trait. Thank you, HHHHH9998, for gifting a sub. I appreciate that. Help support the channel.
And you can even shift people's political beliefs to the right by raising their self-esteem before giving them a political opinions quiz. So yeah, it makes sense given that what we know about them, like they basically hate themselves. They're more than willing to sell themselves out for whatever characteristic of themselves is currently on the chopping block. Oh, we hate America now? Well, I'm from America. I'm the worst. Oh, we hate white people now? Well, I'm white. I'm the worst, etc. And
again, they always go to this example, and I've never seen anyone do this. That's not what most people say. You don't have to literally be self-loathing to recognize the fact that there are inherent biases that take place in the country you live in, and you can be the beneficiary of those things, while also recognizing the immorality of that and working to change it.
Evidence to suggest that white guilt, or making people feel as though they've been given an unfair advantage over other people, is psychologically damaging even after controlling for age, sex, income, education, marital status, and also that it has increased over time as we put our children through schools and curriculums that have taught them to hate themselves. So we've got that established. Now we have to ask ourselves, given that the anti-white narrative is well underway, and given that so many white people are being taught to hate themselves for being white, and so many of them already do, like, we have to ask, what does this achieve? Like, what is the purpose of doing all this? What is to be gained by demonizing white people? Well, think about what the ultimate goal is first. The ultimate goal is to completely destroy America as we know it, or as we knew it, and
Source?
transform it in.
I guess I missed this email. Maybe it went to the spam folder that's like, attention all liberals and leftists. It's time to destroy America. I thought they would have CC'd me on that. I'm a little upset that they didn't, but you know. Doing my best here.
Into a dystopian socialist country where those in charge have everything and all the power and everyone else has nothing. But before they can do that, they have to erode the foundations of this country, which have been there since the beginning, and in some cases even before the beginning.
Such as?
And they were put there by very smart and very strong and very good men.
Okay, smart, yes. Strong, yeah. They fought, you know, the British Empire. That's fucking tough and ballsy. Good? That's real rough. Like all people, the Founding Fathers were complex individuals with a variety of opinions. Many of them owned slaves. That's certainly not a morally good position, regardless of the era in which you live. So, I find the idea of labeling any one person as good is usually reductive. Like, the only person I could think is, like, Mr. Rogers, and I didn't know him personally, so who knows?
And they were intended to be preserved by future generations of those same men. And so, fundamentally, what it comes down to is, of those who built the country and of those who have the deepest roots in the country, the vast majority are white people. This is not a controversial statement. This is just the reality of American history. So,
okay, but that doesn't change the fact that a bunch of people who were not white were forced to come to this country in order to provide free labor to a certain number of people within the population, which, by the way, even if you weren't a direct slave owner back then, benefited you by lowering the prices of goods like cotton, because the labor didn't have to be paid for except for a one-time purchase of the slave. But even that becomes self-perpetuating at some point because slave owners bred their slaves or allowed them to marry and then continue to keep their children as slaves. So human beings were effectively used as capital, and because of that, they are fundamental to the building of this country. Like, that's just true. I don't know what to tell you other than that. Just because there weren't people of color at the Constitutional Convention doesn't mean that a lot of people who were there, including Thomas Jefferson, who then became the president later in life, weren't there because they built their little empires off the backs of people of color who they had enslaved. Like, come on.
To answer why do they hate white people, it's because the people who have the greatest incentive to preserve our country are going to be the people who have the deepest roots here. And this doesn't mean that people whose parents came here 40 years ago can't love America or that they don't want to preserve America. It just means that because of the history of the country, the vast majority of the deepest roots in this country are going to be those of white people.
Not necessarily, and it doesn't even matter. Who cares? I don't care if your father, mother is related to someone who came over on the Mayflower. It is irrelevant. If you're American, you're American, and therefore you have a vested interest in the future of the country.
And that's just because, historically speaking, this country was basically biracial. We were never diverse like the left claims. We had Northern European white people, and we had West African black people. But there were lots more white people than there were black people. And so the strongest force that these militant communists will face is going to be the force of the roots which are buried the deepest in American soil. And the majority of those are the roots of white people. And again, this doesn't mean that non-white people can't love America, or that they don't want to preserve America, or that their families haven't done so for generations. Of course, that's all true. It's just to say that if the left can successfully demonize an entire race of people, they won't even have to go after the patriots of other races, because by that point, it'll be too late. Like, they'll have so much power that they can just completely crush their opposition. So when I see some of these students coming to attend American universities from other countries, and they're talking about how evil America is, how America has to apologize for doing things less evil than their country or most other countries.
Being the lesser of some evils doesn't make you not evil. I'm the ambassador with 100 bits. I want to know what schooling he's gone through, because my schooling was pretty pro-American. Agree.
About how, oh, America has to be more like my country. And it's like they've been here an entire semester, or maybe even an entire undergraduate education. And I think introspectively about how my roots go back in this country hundreds of years.
Doesn't matter. Who cares?
The things that those people fought and died for and built to be passed on to future generations, including myself, not to be taken for granted. How my bloodline has been within a 250-mile radius of where I am right now since 1659. And it's like, yeah, over
probably some inbreeding in that family. That makes a lot of sense.
My dead body. But that's what the strategy is behind white hatred and behind racism in general. Racism doesn't exist in contemporary America as much else than a political strategy. We're taught from infancy that we're racist, or that our country is racist. Its institutions are racist. Its history is racist. How do we fix it? We don't. We replace it with something more progressive, more 21st century, with something more committed to equality and egalitarianism.
Oh no! Equality and egalitarianism? Yeah, that's good, John.
This is all despite the fact that, legally speaking, the least privileged group of people in this country are straight, white, Christian, conservative men.
How?
Me and you, big guy, the forgotten gamers of America. But none of that matters, because
gamers aren't oppressed, but I wish they were. MW1642, thanks for gifting a sub.
Because their fixation on racism is not out of a commitment to justice, it's out of a commitment to victory and domination. If they actually cared about racism, they'd call out the overwhelming amount of anti-white racism that we see every day in our media and that we hear
such as
every day in our classrooms, but they don't, because
like, oh no, Nick Cannon's a weirdo. Yeah, Nick Cannon said some dumb, weird, anti-white, anti-Semitic shit. That's not the prevailing opinion in this country. There aren't systematic issues that are dismantling, like, or making it difficult for white people to get ahead.
Because they actually endorse it themselves. And so conservatives need to understand that racist is not a real word with a real meaning.
It is? Let's take a look, shall we? Racist. Definition. Webster. By Merriam-Webster. Since 1828. That's a pretty good one. That's old. Their bloodline runs pretty deep. That seems like something you're into for some reason, John. Just so. Definition of racism. A belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. 2. A doctrine or political program based on the assumption of racism and designed to execute its principles. B. A political or social system founded on racism. 3. Racial prejudice or discrimination. So this has a meaning. And if you are a racist, you are perpetuating any of these things. Or believing any of these things, right? Okay.
Racist just means shut up. That's all it means. Virtually nothing more. But what conservatives like...
Imagine being so introspective that you're regularly called a racist, and literally at no point have you gone, I wonder why. Oh, hype train. Thank you, everyone, for the various stuff that's getting us to the hype train. Rising Phoenix with 100 bits. I hate to break Mr. Doyle's delicate-y, lily-white bubble, but American exceptionalism has been taught for decades. Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. MW1642 with 100 bits. Trevor Belmont, XXX with 100 bits. Thank you very much.
To do, because we've lost so much in the last few decades that we get excited by even the smallest potential victories. So when someone calls us a racist, we go, now wait just a minute, I'm a racist? All right, why is that? Provide some evidence for your claim. And you've got this smug little look on your face because, oh.
Jousterzen with 100 bits and Mock Turtleneck with 500 bits. We're almost to level 1. Bellstar with 100 bits. 6 hours till I'm free from student debt. Fuck yeah. Get that yoke off your neck. That shit's ridiculous. Thank you. Ooh, level 1 complete. Anyone who's here from the raid, when I do levels of the hype train, I put hats on.
You think you're winning, or you know, if they'll insult you, you'll say, well, if you're insulting me, it's because you can't beat me. It's like, except they are beating you, and they've been beating you. And why is that? Because, well, you've ceded ground to them. You've accepted their moral framework because you think that you can outfox them within it, but you can't. The response to someone calling you a racist is not to debate them on whether or not you're a racist, because the second you do that, you lose. The conversation has been totally derailed. The correct response is to tell them to F off and to go about your business.
There's
You're never going to
funny
convince
about
these
the
people
hats
that
of
you're not
communism.
racist. You are wasting your
True.
time because
Mock
you're agreeing
Turtleneck,
with
thanks
them
for gifting
that
a bit,
being
and
racist is something that is a serious problem in American
Tentaclini
society.
Man
You're
with 45
dignifying
bits.
what
Thanks.
they've said to you with a response. And that's idiotic. The same thing with the predominant conservative strategy now, which is to point out that the Democrats are the real racists. There was a resolution introduced into Congress recently to ban the Democrat Party because its history of supporting slavery, because the Democrats are the real racists. And yet again, Republicans
completely ignores the Southern strategy and the fact that the party's effectively flipped platforms and positions in the past. Around the time of the Civil Rights Movement, Freezer Burn subscribed and says, 3 months with Hannah, heck yeah. You've been a hero of mine for years, and you being so open about your transition has made me come out and start my own transition. Congratulations. I'm glad you can be open, and it feels nice, doesn't it? Cake Earner, thanks for gifting 5 subs. Level 3, almost. Okay.
Republicans are too stupid to understand that they're committing suicide. They're playing right into the left's hand and moral framework, and they think that they're going to win, but they lose every time. Do you think anybody gives...
It's because the right's bad at messaging? Well, how do I put this? They're good on certain messaging. They're good with, like, little phrases like, lock her up, or make America great again, that can get, like, angry people on board with their positions, but they're bad in long-term messaging. It's why they constantly lose things like gay marriage becoming legal, or trans people being seen as human beings, or interracial marriage, or the civil rights movement. That's why. They're consistently bad at moral messaging and understanding that most people have empathy for others. So, it's pretty simple. Am the ambassador with 100 bits. So if there are 2 resumes with the exact same credentials in this world, the one with the traditional white name will be overwhelmingly looked over and not accepted. Funnily enough, it's exactly the opposite. There are studies on this. Wolks Costerwary with 50 bits. Skywise 8 with 100 bits says recently came out as trans. Life is getting a little bit better. It just keeps getting better and better, let me tell you. I am so much more comfortable and less anxious and depressed than I used to be. It's like bananas. Let's see, 1, 2, 3 hats so far. Political parties change over time, and because of idiots like this, I will continue to shove graphics like this at my students. Let's take a look. History of political parties in the United States. We had the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. George Washington, I think, was a Whig, but that's because that was a political party in the UK. And, of course, the United States sort of mirrored their political parties for a bit. But then we had the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. The Democratic Republicans tended to be Southerners like Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and the Federalist Party was people like John Adams, Alexander Hamilton. They were more in favor of stuff like, you know, central bank, basically having more federal power, whereas the Democratic Republican Party was more in favor of having more like a republic of states that worked together, but they were more independent. Mock Turtleneck, thanks for gifting 5 more Tier 1 subs. Wow. This is a crazy hype train. Thank you. Gotta find more hats. 1, 2, 3.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
4, 5. That'll work.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Sorry. There we go.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Anyway, so then it looks like the era of good feelings, which seems to be that the parties sort of came together and were more or less sharing a platform. Then we had the second party system where we had the Whigs and the Democrats. That went on for a while. The Democratic Party then in the 1850s to 1879. Oh shoot, I don't have water. Hey, Baja Blast, if you're listening, could you come bring me my water bottle? I don't know where it went. So we had abolition and anti-abolition between the Whig Party and the Democratic Party. Third party system, 1854 to 1896. We had the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. This was the birth of the two systems. Then, around this time in the 1930s, they basically swapped. The Democrats became the Progressive Party, and the Republicans became the Conservative Party that were anti-New Deal and stuff like that. Then we, of course, have... oh boy, the modern Republican Party, which was born out of sort of opposing the civil rights movement, adopting sort of policies that the Christian right would agree with, and then even now, more recently, we had stuff like the Tea Party movement. But politics are complicated, and the parties have not stayed the same over time. They've changed quite a bit, so... let me see if I missed anything. Mock Turtleneck, thanks for gifting another sub. XXX Trevor Belmont, XXX 50 bits. Cotton Candy 903 with 100 bits. Thanks, everyone. This is how the show gets made, so thank you so much.
Gives a crap what you're telling them about the Democratic Party of the 19th or even 20th century? That was decades ago. They don't like...
At least he recognizes that, because that's one of my least favorite, like, right-wing gotchas. Oh, did you know Lincoln was a Republican? Like, yeah. Yep. So? That was over 100 years ago.
Like you because they think you're racist now, and nothing is going to change that. They're not looking at it like, who did this to me, the Republicans or the Democrats? They're looking at it like, oh, it was white people. And the left and the media and the universities affirm that like, yeah, it was white people. And the conservative response is to go, yes, but more specifically, it was the Democrats. They don't care. No one cares. That racist country that they're trying to fundamentally decompose is being handed off by the radical left politicians and by the media and by...
John, what does it say that you think that racism and systematic racism are so fundamental to this country that if you remove those, the country ceases to exist? Like, you can have America and have it be egalitarian and not awful. Why do you feel that it's so intrinsic to the country?
By the universities, and your response is, well, at least it's the Democrats that screwed it up in the first place and made them hate it. It doesn't matter. You doorknob. The end results are the same. Stop recycling old leftist talking points because you think it's going to win you the black vote. Have a seat for this one. It's not pretty. The Republican Party is never going to win the black vote. It's impossible. This is very simply because since black people exist as a minority group in this country, they have emphasized group solidarity in party politics so as to leverage their political strength. This party loyalty is what's referred to as...
Thank you, XXX Trevor Belmont XXX, for gifting 5 Tier 1 subs, Mock Turtleneck for 1,500 bits. Wow. This is a crazy hype train. Thank you, everyone.
Racialized social constraint, which is basically that support for the Democratic Party has come to be defined as a norm of group behavior, or in other words, it's just something that is expected of you as a black person, and it's meant to empower the group as a whole. And I have lots of black conservatives in the audience who I know can speak to this, that voting Democrat is just something that you're expected to do as a black American, and something that can get you ostracized if you don't do it. We all know that black Americans overwhelmingly vote for Democrats, but what you might not know is that even black Republicans don't vote for Republicans that often. In every presidential election between 1968 and 2012, black Republicans only voted majority Republican in half of them. Studies have shown that running black candidates as Republicans has basically no effect on getting black Americans to vote for Republicans, and even that blacks who self-identify as Republican only vote for Republicans about 12% of the time.
It's almost like Republicans put off people in minority communities, even those who would normally be allies, because they continually show themselves to be the antagonists of those communities.
That's right.
Very strange. All the hats, Bellstar says with 100 bits. Thanks, everyone. Awesome hype train. Now let me see if I can balance these hats for the next hour while we continue the stream.
Also, black attitudes towards things like gay marriage and abortion were not predictive of black voting, which is interesting because black Americans are very religious people. But with the data that we have available, if you wanted to get the probability of a black American voting Republican to be over 50%, you would have to look at black Americans who self-identify as Republicans and who also self-identify as evangelical Christians, and then who also supported the war in Iraq. And then even then, it's only 65% voting Republican. So what does this mean? It means that for the time being, Republicans are never going to get the black vote. It's just like virtually impossible. And
someday they might if the Republican Party basically completely changes the way that it behaves. In fact, in 2012, I think it was, after Mitt Romney lost the election, there was this post-mortem that the Republicans put out that basically said, okay, here's what we need to change in the party in order to get more votes from other communities, because clearly the demographics of the country are changing, and minority communities, which will someday be less minority than they are today, really, really hate us. So here are the things we need to change. Basically said they need to be less racist, need to embrace more left-leaning policies. But here we are. Look what happened. Now Trump's the president, and it won him some time. But nonetheless, the reality is the demographics of the country are changing. And the Republicans are not doing anything to change their opinion other than getting more fascist. So instead of actively changing their platforms to be more appealing to different kinds of people, they just said, no, we're gonna try and get fewer people to vote. We're going to try and make it harder for people in those communities to vote. It's fucked up. Cotton Candy 903 with 5 bits says black Republicans would vote for more Republicans if they weren't continually screwed over by the party. True.
The reason for that is that there is a pervasive and poisonous cultural narrative within Black America that says racism and oppression are the reasons for discrepancies. And the Democrats are more than happy to go along with that for political power, but of course they don't actually care about Black Americans. We know.
Or it's because it's true?
That, but it doesn't matter, because now conservatives are in a tough position, because to address and agree with that cultural narrative would be false. But it's also difficult to sell anything else, especially considering how successful Democrats have been. And so Republicans foolishly believe that they can beat the Democrats at their own game by saying, hey, guess what? Democrats are the real racists. It will never work. If you want to bring Black Americans to the Republican Party, you can't do it by playing a worse version of what the Democrats are doing. Like, you have to restore order to their neighborhoods. You have to put their families before the families of non-Americans. And you have to emphasize how gay the Democrats have made everything, for lack of a better phrase. Like,
what?
That would be a step in the right direction.
What? In what? Is this middle school? What kind of politics is this? The Democrats are gay. What? That's a ridiculous statement to make. On top of being weirdly homophobic?
But again, even stemming back to block voting as a strategy for leveraging group political power, you're talking about something that is just not realistic. And it's not like I don't care about black people, so I'm just going to dismiss these problems. It's more like I do care about black people, and I think that what you're doing as the left is not only failing to solve any problems, I think it's also making them worse, and I'm suspect of your political aspirations giving the radical policy prescriptions which you've proposed. This is said because we actually
radical policy positions, like giving everyone health care like every other modern nation on the planet.
Want to solve the problem. We have to identify the problem first, though. And when you pander to Black Americans with the left's narrative that you know is complete BS, you're not actually earning their vote with anything compelling. You don't deserve it either. In 2012, Mitt Romney got 27% of the Hispanic vote. Hispanics are the largest minority group in America. They make up about 18% of the population. Mitt Romney got 27% of them to vote for him. Here's an interesting fact. If Mitt Romney had gotten 71% of the Hispanic vote instead of just 27%, he still would have lost. But that being said, guess how many more percentage points of white voters he would have needed to win? 4%. The point of all—
That's because there's more? That's because there's more white people in the country. Math is hard, I know, but, like, yeah.
All this being that until we can figure out an actual strategy for appealing to these different groups of people, instead of just doing stupider and more dishonest versions of what the left is doing, we should probably focus on maintaining support with white voters. And then, once
I think it's telling that he views that community outreach and trying to care about black people and people of different races would be dishonest from Republicans. At least he's honest about the fact that that would be dishonest, because he knows people on the right don't care about minority communities.
we get into positions of power and we start to get things on the right track again, then we can figure out other strategies, because it doesn't matter if the truth is on your side. If you don't control the media or the universities, which you don't, by the way, then you're not going to win. And if and when we take those institutions back, we can start spreading things like that about our enemies to make sure that they never hold power again, because that's exactly what they're doing to us. But the difference is that the things that we will be saying are true. Then and only then can we begin tarnishing the history of the Democrats. Can we begin consolidating control of the blackmail tapes? Relaxed. You get the idea. But even then, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the inability to view the enemy through a lens other than the one provided by the left, who aren't our friends. Like I mentioned, that immigrant labor.
M the Ambassador 19 says, I said once and I'll say it again. What world does this fucker live in? In my reality, my primary and secondary education was neutral on American history, and the college classes were also neutral. Yeah, my civics professor called himself Mr. Fox News because he watched Fox News all the time. He was right wing. Like, I'm not saying that's the norm in academia, but like, they act like there are no differing opinions in college, and it's so strange.
Labor harms black Americans. And it's true that after Jim Crow ended, blacks were never really given a chance to succeed because of the 65 Immigration Act, and it was harder for them to find jobs that would pay relatively well. But you can't view that through that lens, because your PP gets hard thinking about, well, people coming to America because they love it and they want to work hard. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but we've known for decades that immigrant labor disproportionate.
What planet on this guy is on, I'm not sure, but wherever it is, he's still living with his parents on it.
Harms black Americans, but you'd rather tell me, John, it was the Democrat Party and Lyndon B.
By the way, I don't think I mentioned this to anyone who is new to this channel from the raid or anything. I have a YouTube channel where I have all my past streams. I just put it in the chat if you want to check it out or subscribe or anything. Give it a look-see when you have the time. I have tons of content on there. I do Chud Watch regularly, which is this show, but I also do Sovereign Citizen stuff. I just started doing a cringe stream thing that's pretty fun. I do conspiracy theories on Tinfoil Tuesday. So, you know, check out any of the playlists on there if any of that sounds interesting to you.
Johnson's Great Society programs. John, do you know what he said about black voters? It would disgust you. And maybe after I'm done telling you about that, I can tell you about who really founded the KKK. And it's like, please, please, please stop. I know you think you're helping, but you're not. You can't beat them at their own game. You are...
To dunk on conspiracy theories? Yeah. Like, we do debunkings. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Quite the opposite. Yeah. It's like dunking on conspiracy theories.
The poor American teenager walking into the jungles of Vietnam, and they're the
We just did one that's somewhat politically related, that it's a QAnon conspiracy, where there was a QAnon documentary we've been watching, and the final part included literal claims that JFK Jr. is using a time machine in order to help Donald Trump. I'm not kidding.
Viet Cong who are going to tear you apart. You don't know this game. You don't know its rules. You will never win. Turn around and regroup. Otherwise, you're just burning resources. The unfortunate reality of our situation is that identity politics is inevitable. We are living in a multiracial, multicultural society with nothing substantive under which to unify, and as a result of that, identity politics are inevitable, especially because the left has realized how effective they are for consolidating and increasing political power. And that's wrong of them to do. But the problem that conservatives have is that we think that issues can be evaluated and weighed in the abstract without any regard for emotion or lived experiences. We think that everything should just boil down to facts and logic.
It's because you completely ignore the reality of situations. It's because you think, oh, everything's fine. Everyone has equality of opportunity, when that isn't the case, and people can tell you from experience that isn't the case. Nonetheless, you go, well, it must be true. We live in America. We have this flag that says that we have the freedoms. So we must all have equality. You're all crazy. I have facts and logic. No. Nope. Nope. Comes from an incredible place, and you're gonna hate this word, but it's true. Privilege, when people like Ben Shapiro, who grew up in a wealthy family, fail to recognize the reality of the situation in America for the vast majority of the people living in it. Like, come on, John.
But unfortunately, that's just a pipe dream. That's not how human beings work. We are emotionally driven beings. So yeah, it would be great if everyone could set aside their differences and look at things objectively with ink and paper, but that's just never going to happen. So conservatives need to figure out a way to coexist with that, because right now we're trying to fight this consequence of human nature, while the left is running wild with it and just racking up points on us. Like, the problem with Black Lives Matter, according to most basic conservatives, would be, well, all lives matter, not just the black lives. That's missing the point. The real problem with Black Lives Matter is that virtually the entire narrative is a lie. The entire timeline from Trayvon to Michael Brown, hands up, don't shoot, it's all a lie. That's the problem.
Yikerinos. Imagine actually looking into, like, any of these issues and being like, you know what? Nope, not an issue. Ugh. And the Ambassador 19 with 10 bits. Has he ever in the video brought up the resume study I brought up earlier, or the fact that black people are more likely to be arrested for drugs? No. Of course not. He ignores facts that go against his already existing beliefs.
And if conservatives could take control of a narrative, they could communicate that better. But it goes back to the Gadsden flag versus silence is violence. As of now, conservatives don't exist to create narratives. We exist to basically react smugly to the narratives of the left, sometimes with facts and logic, as though this is an equivalent or even comparable strategy for winning people to our side, but it isn't. If you want to...
The idea that conservatives or people on the right in general use facts and logic instead of just, you know, saying that phrase and acting like their lack of empathy or emotional care for the issues at hand is somehow more reasonable than understanding the lived experiences of actual Americans is ridiculous. Come on. Just because you have no empathy doesn't make you logical. It makes you a sociopath.
To be against something, you also have to be for something. And right now, conservatives basically exist to be against the seductive collapse of our country, but they're not exactly offering up any alternative solutions. And unless that changes, our future looks pretty gloomy. And the plan's not complicated. It was never complicated. It's not the Illuminati. It's not the Clintons. It's an elite ruling class who have unwaveringly imported the third world while offshoring manufacturing jobs so that they could hire cheap labor with the help of the bought and paid for Washington establishment. And not only...
What the fuck? Like, that was quick, but, like, saying importing the third world is literally just fucking Nazi shit. Oh no, brown people are in my country now. Like, okay, who cares? They're human beings, you sicko.
Only do the politicians share in the profits off the mega corporations, they get to use the ever-rewarding strength of diversity as political capital. They now have the opportunity to create and exploit group division for political influence and power, and all of this has led to the complete destabilization of society to the...
This is like some JQ dog whistling, by the way. It definitely sounds like Nazi Jewish question dog whistling. When he says elite, he doesn't mean people like Donald Trump. He means what he views to be some secret elite Jewish people. He's a fucking fascist.
The levels which we're approaching now. We talk a lot on this channel about how the collapsed family structure has led to the destabilization of society.
The hats are because when we do a hype train for every level of the hype train, I put another hat on. So.
That's part of it, but when you're living in a country with literally no unifying principles or heritage or culture or religion or language or even morality, the only thing left for you to do collectively is participate in the consumerist culture. But then even that becomes difficult because they're sending jobs overseas and bringing in millions of people to compete with American families for whatever's left. Like, see how that might be a problem? Conservatives got so excited and caught up in defending capitalism that we forgot to defend America. Because if you don't put America first and you sell her to the lowest bidder in this case, then she won't be America much longer. Who do you think pays for those economic studies to be written? Those studies that prove living in a post-industrial economy is actually good for the average American because we can buy orange juice for 20 cents less. It's all horse crap. There's no such thing as a post-industrial
dog whistle
economy or society. Our jobs didn't just magically become information jobs or whatever. They just left. They just went away. They didn't all...
A lot of those jobs have been automated over time because technology has improved. So have some of them been outsourced? Absolutely. Many of them just no longer exist, though. They replaced low-skill jobs with high-skill jobs that are engineering machinery and processes by which to manufacture things, and then the ability to service those machines. So, don't know what to tell you. That's the reality.
Into the information economy, they just disappeared. And the people who financed and made money from those decisions didn't care that towns throughout the heart of America were in the blast radius. The only reason that that information is so easily available and is
yeah, that's capitalism. The people you're talking about are capitalists. Welcome to capitalism. When you have free movement of capital without free movement of labor, it's gonna fuck up certain areas. It's gonna happen.
To all of us throughout school seemingly is the only concession that they'll give to capitalism is because people paid for it to be there and they paid for it to be taught to you. The government is not your friend, but you know who else isn't your friend? Billionaires who use the government to hurt you for them so that they don't have to get blood on their Armani suits.
Imagine saying this while holding a laptop that says enjoy capitalism and with photos or with posters that are like anti-communist propaganda. This one's a Nazi one, but this one's like, just saying.
Never forget that. We're getting off topic. See, now I've gone too far. Now they're going to kill me. But I should have just said that everything can be traced back to the Clintons. That's the approved line for conservatives.
Alcarin,
and that's
thanks
what
for
was
following.
so funny to me about when Epstein died. And I did a video about, well, I was trying to get people to understand that this whole thing is so much bigger than the Clintons and that they basically are irrelevant. And right on cue, I had people in the comments, no, it was the Clintons. And it's like, okay, cool. What are you going to do about it? You've got it all figured out. What's next? You look on late night television shows, all over social media, literally everyone, including the mainstream celebrities, were making jokes about how Epstein didn't kill himself. The Clintons did it again, and everyone had a good laugh about it. And I remember tweeting at that time about it. And I said something like, I'm glad everyone's just now coming out to discuss the circumstances surrounding Epstein now that it's a quirky little trend on social media. And it's like, you're going to make that joke and then you're going to go back to watching Parks and Recreation, right? Like you're going to post that and then you're going to be like, hey, honey, what's the Disney Plus password again? And it's just a show.
Excuse you, I can fight against the ruling class while also watching Parks and Rec.
Where we are as a society, how weak and passive.
We're almost done. There's only 3 minutes left of this video, a little less, I promise.
Impotent we are, that something like that could literally happen right in front of us, and the only thing that we can do is make it into a meme or even a holiday sweater so that everyone knows how topical and funny we are. The people who actually killed Epstein, and it wasn't the Clintons, they're not laughing with you when you say that. They're laughing at you because they know that they're untouchable and they know that you'll never do anything about it because you're too distracted. But anyways, see, now I'm really going to get hit. The point that I'm trying to make, or that I was trying to make, is that if you want to appeal to black Americans, then you have to appeal to black Americans. Get what I'm saying? Conservatives think that we can reject identity politics and still get black Americans to flip for us. But to believe that undermines the block voting strategy for political leverage that minority groups, and particularly black Americans, tend to practice. And that belief that we hold ignores the unique self-perceived identity of black Americans. And for the time being, if we ever wanted to flip black Americans for Republicans, it would require us to acknowledge that unique self-perceived identity amongst black Americans. When we have power for 60 years and we control the narratives,
yeah, we can do a cleanse after this.
Then maybe we can get closer to viewing each other as just Americans, you know? But for the time being, we don't really have a choice with identity politics or things like it, because if we sit out, we keep singing the same old song that's led us to this point, we're just going to lose even harder and perhaps irreparably. Right. And I know we said we were going to talk about systemic racism, but we've been going for a while. I don't know. I don't think...
Trekkie69, thanks for following.
I think I have it in me, to be honest. So if you've made it this far, thank you. I really appreciate you sticking around. We'll do it in the next video, the idea of systemic racism. We'll just go through it in detail. We'll just completely tear...
Oh, God. I can't wait, John. I can't wait.
To shreds and expose it for the lie that it is. But it's still good that we talked about this stuff, you know? It's important stuff. Hey, guys, if you like this video, leave it a thumbs up. Leave it a comment.
Okay, we'll do some cleanse stuff. Lord Simpington, thank you for following. We're gonna do a bit of a cleanse. First, let me show you my favorite picture on the internet to look at after a video like that. Nope, not Twitch. Twitter. Sorry. Twitter. Profile. Media. Let me find the photo. Oh, there's the new kitty, by the way. Kitty! Cute. Oh, this was a cool fan art someone made of Jake and I. I wish I looked like that. Although, little anime-y, but, you know. Here we go. There's John Doyle working at Subway, pointing a gun at a camera. Awful trigger discipline, by the way. And yes, that is a real picture that he posted himself. Very badass. Anyway, I'm not sure if he still works at Subway, but he does still live with his parents, so... Which is fine. It's fine. It seems hypocritical coming from him, being the right-wing, pull-yourself-up-by-your-bootstraps kind of guy that he is. So, yeah, whatever. Let's find a cleanse. What do you guys think for a cleanse? You have any ideas? Thank you to the Ambassador 19, who says, "What reality does this motherfucker live in, and can I live in it because it sounds amazing?" In the reality he wants to live in, women don't really have rights, so I don't know if that'd be a good idea. Was his arms training Pulp Fiction? Funny. Someone sent this as a cleanse. Native Americans dancing around a Christopher Columbus statue. What else do we got?
California's Gold is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Library Association. Bang! Hit it, Joe!
It is a one-man band. I don't know what these things are called, but it is effectively that, yes. It was made for silent movies, so they could do special sound effects. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Like, I know they used to play piano, like, for silent films, but I didn't realize that they had special ones that could do stuff like this. It's pretty cool. It's pretty great. Has another link for a cleanse, and then we can get back to the Rising Phoenix. Thanks for gifting a tier 1 sub. I appreciate that. Oh god, what's this? Oh god. Okay, we're gonna skip. Nope. This involves scantily clad women, which might be TOS. So memory leak. Thanks for subscribing with Twitch Prime. I appreciate that. I love Rube Goldberg devices. Does this legit go on for, like, 7 minutes? That's insane. I'm speeding it up. Oh my god. How many times did they have to reset this because it didn't work right? I can't even get Mousetrap to work. The board game. Fidget spinners. To be fair, Mousetrap doesn't work. Damn you, Milton Bradley! Derp42069 says, I think the general idea is that you lay things out in separate units, and then you, that you set up, but then you put blockers to avoid the cascade. I'm sure, but, like, there has to be a couple takes of this where it just didn't quite work. So they had to reset, like, half of it, at least, or something, you know? It's gonna vibrate and then make it work. That's a good one. Oh, okay. I was gonna say, the balloon didn't pop, but it did. Imagine if you, like, fuck up the camera or your phone freezes halfway through and it stops taking video. Holy shit, good for them. That must have taken so much work. I can't even imagine. All right, let's see. We got Tate speech. Let's do a Tate speech. Tate's so weird. Let's check it out. Oh, Tate on. Let's look at his most popular. Tate on Women, Episode 2. This is only 4 minutes, but Tate packs a lot of hate into 5 minutes. So let's see. Cotton Candy 903, thanks for the 5 bits.
I've got an unpopular opinion for you.
You don't know who this guy is, but you're scared. You should be. Tate's a monster. He's the worst person I think I've ever seen on YouTube. He's up there, at least. It's tough, but he's, like, aggressively ignorant.
If you're gonna be on my
and he's rich, which makes it so much worse.
YouTube channel, you need to understand that I live in the real world, and the real world is sexist. And when I say that, people start freaking out, going, "You hate women." I don't hate women. I just think men are better than women at certain things, and they happen to be the things that are extremely important for survival. Next time a woman gives you that strong, independent woman bullshit, you need to remind her that less than 200 years ago, without a man in her life, she would literally die.
Okay, and that has a lot to do with the systematic disenfranchisement of women. They weren't allowed to go into the workforce. They weren't allowed to provide for themselves. They were effectively forced via society into a certain role, which was that of caregiver for children. Now, there were a variety of factors. For instance, prior to the industrial age, it may have been more difficult for certain women to work on a farm or whatever, but it was still possible, and women certainly did occasionally do those things and work on their family farms in addition to taking care of the children. But a lot of these things were socially prescribed.
Men hunted. Men are stronger. We can run faster. We can swim further. We can fight. There's a lot of things a man can do that a woman instinctively cannot do. And for a long period of human history, if a woman didn't have a man, she would literally die and starve to death. So women need men for survival. Men don't need women. Yeah, we like to fuck women, and we need women to have babies. But in general, a man can survive on its own.
The fact that you see the only value a woman could possibly hold is that you want to put your penis inside of her, it's pretty fucked. It's pretty fucked. And I think Tate knows that. He wouldn't disagree that it's fucked. He just has absolutely no shame in his fucked up misogynistic opinions.
A woman can. And if you look at the way the world is, this is why women are instinctively attracted to alphas or attracted to men with money or status.
Another bullshit person who believes in bullshit alpha beta male nonsense. Again, the whole alpha male beta male thing is entirely based off a debunked study about wolf packs.
Because women know they need to be provided for and cared for.
Cotton Candy 903 with 5 bits. We're only a minute in and I already want to punch him. Yeah, he's awful.
A real woman who's going to not come at you with this new age feminist bullshit is going to agree with you. She's going to sit there and go, yeah, you're actually right. Women need men far more than men need women.
Like, he's not even talking about third or fourth wave feminism here. He's talking about, like, first, maybe second wave feminism and claiming that this is new age bullshit. Friendo, suffrage was something that was fought for in, like, the 1920s in America. What are you talking about?
And that's because men are physically superior to females. And in the real world, you take away society, you go down to the very basic instincts of what being a human is, being physically superior.
Feminist Critique Pod with 45 bits. You've now introduced me into covering this guy on my own stream, and I don't know whether to be grateful or depressed. You're welcome, and I apologize.
Is actually, in most forms, the only form of superiority that matters. Who gives a shit?
Women got the right to vote before the 20s? Let me see. Women's right to vote. I don't know when Susan B. Anthony was, like, hanging around. 19th Amendment. Beginning in the 1800s. Between 1878, when the amendment was first introduced to Congress, and August 18th, It was 1920 when it was ratified. No, I was right. It was only ratified in 1920.
About how if women are as smart as men. That's not even an argument. I believe maybe we are equal. Maybe. That's another debate. But the point is, if there's a hurricane and law and order disappeared and you were stuck out in the wilderness and shit fucking hit the fan and there was no police around, who cares how smart you are? You need a man to protect you or you're going to get raped and killed.
That's... Okay, for one thing, bum pedal, thank you for following. Secondly, doesn't that say a lot of fucked up things about men if that's how you view them, that they're all going to, like, rape and murder women en masse if women don't have men to protect them? Secondly, women can own guns, so disagree.
It's the reality of the world. So before you continue with my YouTube channel, you're gonna hear me reference a lot in the future that men are better than women, and that's my point. I'm not sexist, I'm realistic. And reality...
This is the misogynist version of race realism. No, bro, you're just fucked up.
...is sexist. Also, let me just expand on this. Well, while we're here, I'll expand on this point quickly. I know they say men and women are of the same intelligence, and maybe that's true. But there's a whole bunch of shit which men and women should both be able to do equally as good that men are far better at. Like... we have, like, running, for example, yeah? We have running world records for men, running world records for women. The men are better at running because the men are physically superior to the females. That's obvious, fine.
Oh my god, it has to do with hormones and how muscles develop differently between the sexes. What are you talking about?
But let's say Formula 1 driving. There's no reason why a man would be better at driving a car than a woman unless he had faster reactions, unless he had something in his brain which allowed him to be more capable.
I'd imagine there are social reasons for that. I imagine fewer women get into Formula 1 driving, although I'd imagine there are some Formula 1 drivers who are women. But I'd imagine it has to do more with cars are usually seen in the Western world as a guy thing. So the people who are going to trend towards getting into that interest and getting very good at it to the point that they are performing at the professional level are mostly going to be guys. The same thing applies for, like, NASCAR.
At that task. Why are all the best chess players in the world men? Why can't women break down the board and use their logic to compete with a man on a chessboard? I mean, there's a whole host of activities I can give you where it should be completely fair, where a man's physicality has nothing to do with it, where men simply excel and women don't. So, I will...
None of this could be due to systematic sexism either. It has to all be egalitarian. It must be the women's fault. This is like John Doyle's opinion on, like, racial indiscrepancies in terms of, like, wealth.
I'll actually take it a step further. I believe men are superior to women physically. I also believe men are superior to females mentally. I'm not saying there are no smart women. I'm not saying every man is smarter. I'm not saying that men aren't dumb. I'm not saying that. I'm saying on average, if I were to go out into the general public and ask 100 women questions and 100 men questions, the men would probably know more. I know women who don't know their left and right. I don't know a single man who does that.
Tate, I've seen many videos of you. Time and time again, you prove yourself to be an idiot. So of all people, you're not the best one to maybe talk about intelligence levels. Like, and I'm not saying this is an ad hom. It isn't. Like, I'm not saying he's wrong because he's dumb. I am, however, saying it's incredibly, incredibly hypocritical of him to try and say that he thinks women are dumb when he's one of the dumbest motherfuckers I've ever seen on the internet. And that's saying something. I cover flat earthers regularly. Inwani, thank you for following.
Next time you're in a car with a chick, go right, quick, and watch her flounder and go, which way's right? Say, think fast and throw something at her. Watch her just flap her arms around and get hit in the face. Men don't do that shit. So men think faster than women anyways.
Also, frankly, Tate, I'd imagine this is sort of a bias of the women who hang around you, because intelligent women would smell you from about a mile away and get nowhere near your shitty, backward attitude, so...
We're physically superior and we're mentally superior. I just want to make the point that people think when I say this that I hate women. They're like, oh, you hate women. I don't hate women. I love women. 100% of the people I've had sex with in my life were women. I love women completely. I just understand that we're better at different things. Women are better at giving compassion and more compassionate. I believe a mother is a lot more important than a father in certain roles. I understand the strength of being a woman, and I understand what women are good at. But I also understand the strength of being a man, and I understand that men are far superior than females in most of the most important things that make us human. I'll piss some people off.
Jesus Christ, he's such a douche. What else? Let's see Tate on sparkling water. I want to see what his opinion on, like, let's see, sparkling water. I think it just has, like, minerals and stuff. Is it also carbonated? Oh, it's just carbonated. Okay, cool. Just checking.
I can't go through my life without getting angry. One dude orders sushi. Some other dude's scared of bubbles. Pussy ass dudes.
What?
We are filming in my cigar lounge. It's not yet complete, but this is a room in my house that's going to be specifically for cigars. It's a cigar lounge. We've got oak on the walls. We've got very expensive liquors. Not that I can tell the difference. Like whiskey, I bought a $1,000 bottle, bought a $20 bottle. Tasted the same to me.
Anyone who tells me that wealth is an indicator of intelligence, send them to Tate, because he's made a lot of money both in MMA fighting and in scamming dudes, because he, you know, does this channel and he does a whole, like, here's a course, pay me money and I'll tell you how to get rich, just like me. So he scams vulnerable, you know, men. But he's an idiot, so.
That's what you do when you're rich. I got a cigar lounge in my house, because I'm a G. And that's going to lead on to the following point, that how the only water I drink is sparkling water, because sparkling water is for rich people. And I'll tell you why. You can get non-carbonated water, still water, from the fucking tap.
Okay, and that doesn't make it bad. It's fine for you to like sparkling water, Tate. Frankly, I thought this was going to be opposite. I thought this video was going to be like Tate being like, if you drink sparkling water, you're gay. I thought it was going to be some homophobic shit. But no, he likes it, therefore it's good. Okie dokie.
The government gives you that shit, effectively for free.
No, water costs money. I pay a water bill every month. It's far from free, believe me.
Sparkling water you have to buy. So if you only drink sparkling water, you only drink...
I'm pretty sure you can get like a machine in your house that you can make your own carbonated water.
Rich man's water. I explained this to someone, some bumbaclut, and of course he replied with the typical, but I don't like sparkling. You don't like sparkling water? You don't like water?
I don't like the carbonation in water feels weird to me. I feel like carbonation should be for something with, you know, flavor. Water, I just like flat water. It's fine.
Yeah, but the bubbles. The bubbles? You scared of bubbles, you little bitch?
Okay, they might just not like them. You understand that you could not like something without being afraid of it, right, Tate? What?
Doesn't taste of anything. It has bubbles in it. Oh, you're afraid of bubbles?
Do you understand the concept of dislike? It'd be like if I was like, oh man, I love orange juice. I love the pulp. And someone was like, oh man, I really don't like pulp orange juice. And I went, what, are you afraid of pulp? I would rightfully be called an idiot, because clearly people can have preferences that are not tied to whether or not you are afraid of something.
Fuck is wrong with you?
Speaking of which, remember a while back when Tate talked about how he was going to go skydiving, but then he decided not to because he thought it was for bitches or whatever stupid thing he said? So Tate, by your own logic, you're afraid of skydiving, despite the fact that you said multiple times in that video that you didn't. You weren't afraid. Very consistent.
This is another full-grown man. Fucking some other bitch. Just told you about how to fucking, I'm sitting, I can't go through my life without getting angry. I've got to meet people, business associates, etc. I go there, one dude orders sushi. Some other dude's scared of bubbles.
What the fuck is wrong with sushi? Sushi's good.
Like, if a waiter comes over and goes, what water for the table? Sparkling, please. I obviously answer because I'm the fucking boss. And then some little fucking bitch, oh, can I have a still? The fuck, just drink the water on the table.
Or, since it's a restaurant, let people drink what they want to drink, you psycho.
You're a fucking man. You're gonna start making the waiter run back and forth?
I've never heard a weirder argument than, fellas, is it gay to drink flat water? When people say toxic masculinity, this is what they're talking about, for the record.
And change water orders because you can't handle bubbles? Pussy ass dudes. You should only drink sparkling water anyways because it's what aristocrats like myself drink. The Lord of all beasts of the land and fishes of the sea. We drink sparkling water, and you should want to be like me because I'm a better person than you. So in every single possible tiny way you can emulate the great Andrew Tate, you should be doing the same things. Don't order sushi, drink sparkling water. But even if you are such a bitch, you won't choose sparkling water. When it's given to you, just fucking drink it. If I see a man, if you ever meet a man who's afraid of sparkling water, know this. He's certainly afraid of combat.
Someone clip that, please. I can't say I see the connection, but alright. What, you don't drink sparkling water, as we all knew, as they were about to hit the beaches at Normandy. They all had their bottles of sparkling water. They were like, yeah, we're gonna go kill some Nazis. I need my bubbly water. Ooh. Cotton Candy 903 with 5 bits. I think he's been hit in the head too many times. Could be.
He's certainly afraid of getting punched in the mouth. He's afraid of a fucking carbonated bubble. Little pussy-ass dude. So if you're sitting there at a table and your friend... Well,
it's not a bit. This is who he is. I've watched so many videos on his channel. He has a Twitter where he's like this too. He has a whole business where he coaches men. This is real. This is his actual personality. You can look him up. He was an MMA fighter. It's how he made his money.
Won't drink sparkling water, he's not your friend. Because when shit hits the fan and you get jumped and you're getting stabbed by 10 randoms, he ain't jumping in front of knives to save your ass like a good friend should if he's scared of fucking bubbles in his water. Anyone who drinks still water is excommunicated permanently.
I'm so glad I watched this one. I needed this.
And for your safety, I strongly suggest you do the same. Get all your friends around.
Why is he saying water like that? Because he has, I think, like a New Zealand... He has some sort of accent. I don't know. But he tries very hard to hide it. Like, he's tried to Americanize his accent, and he slips constantly.
Call every friend you have right now. All of them. Invite them over for a party. When they all turn up, pour out sparkling water. Pour it all out. Pour it out. Say, everyone, let's have a glass of water together. Water can't hurt anybody. We're all probably dehydrated anyway. What's the worst water can do? Everyone, let's have a nice glass of water, and everyone's going to drink it. And when you see that one dude, oh, there's bubbles. Never speak to him again.
Someone in the chat asked for a link. Here you go if you want to check that out. Or send it to someone. That's pretty fucking funny. What a psycho. What an absolute psycho. Oh, Jeremy, do you got anything I need to look at today? I don't see any Brie Larson videos today, so we might just skip Jeremy. Wait, was that a Brie Larson? Oh no, we already watched that one, yeah. We'll skip Jeremy today. We'll give him a little break. Terrence Pop, who is one of the worst people too. This might be the last video we get through today. Did I watch Jeremy leaving Twitter video? Nah, it was boring. I watched part of it, but he was just like, Twitter's like awful, and here's why, and it's like, sure. Let's see what Terrence Pop has. This will probably be, again, the last video we do today. Nice guys don't want you anymore, live from the lair. Oh god. This guy, if anyone's new here, hasn't seen the recent streams I've done with him, this is Terrence Pop. He is a red pill MGTOW guy. And he makes videos basically about why he thinks women are a waste of time. He's been divorced, I think, a couple times. He's incredibly bitter about it, and you can tell. And he has taken out all his anger on women as a whole. You can tell that he's never once introspected and tried to think like, maybe my marriage is ended because I'm awful and treat women poorly. And instead he just projects it all outward in a disgusting spew of vile nonsense. He's Irish? Tate? Oh, okay. I didn't know where he was from. So block cis myself. Thank you for following.
All right, everybody. Terrence Pop here with another episode from the lair. And today I'm going to be doing a reaction piece. I got an email.
Look at all those mall swords. That makes sense. Ew. Look at his shirt. Refugee repellent, and it's a gun. Literally just being like, I'll murder refugees, you fucking ass. Are you kidding me?
Email from a guy. He sent me this. Dear girls who are finally ready to date.
Oh, and he's drunk most of the time on his videos. I forgot to mention that.
Nice guys. I know it's been out there for a while, but it's like the third or fourth time somebody sent it to me, and they want me to address it. So I'm going to do that right now. Number one. Let's see. Ladies, be honest with yourself now.
He might actually be sober in this one. Oh, wait, no, there's something over here. It's a can. I can't tell. He doesn't sound as drunk as he normally does, though.
Get familiar with the dick stacking test, please. You take the number of cocks you've been, the number of men you've been with, multiply that by 6, and then divide by 12. And if you put a platform at that height and you jump off, if you're gonna get hurt, then that's too many cocks.
Jesus fucking Christ. Really, policing the sexuality of other people. Why is it any of your business how many people other people sleep with? Who cares? I understand that you're super bitter about your failed relationship and that no one wants to deal with you because of your awful personality. But let's not make it a bitterness thing. Let's not be angry at others for the things that they do.
It is what it is. And don't think you can avoid the question with guys and saying, hey, I don't keep track, that's 100 cocks. Or I'm a free spirit, that's 45 cocks. I mean, come on, we all know what's going on here. All right? You're over 30, we don't give a fuck, and, ride it into the scene of the crash, baby.
You're like 50, and this is actually one of his earlier videos. He looks relatively young here versus the videos we've seen more recently. I think all the alcohol has aged him terribly, but like, dude, you look almost 50. How about we don't try and judge people based on the fact that they're over 30?
First of all, when you're around us, please stop talking about your ex or your current boyfriend, how much of a dick he is, and slaps you around, and he's like a Neanderthal or something. You invited that into your life, and we're no longer the White Knights. I don't know.
Hats for Sale. I remember that book. I had the same book. Caps for Sale. And a bunch of monkeys stole the hats. I remember that. I put on hats. For each level of the hype train we get to, I put on another hat. So, it is very similar to that, though. I loved this book as a kid. Anyway.
I sold my horse to France to eat that over there. Horse meat's pretty good. My armor became a, I don't know, wood stove, and I'm just chilling like a villain and watching you pay the piper. You spent your 20s bed hopping, when either while you're in college as a prostitute, or a hewer, or a hoe, which is a horizontal oriented entertainer, and now you want to, also want to be treated like a lady. Sorry.
Why is whether or not you treat someone with respect based on the amount of sexual partners they've had? Do you not see how that's really fucked up? Like, who cares? If someone wants to go and sleep with a bunch of people, that's their business. Not yours. Why do you think you get to treat people poorly based upon the number of sexual partners they've had?
You lost that a long time ago, so... you might want to get those warts burned off because that's nasty. All right, ladies. Now, you're going to hate to hear this, but you say chivalry is dead. Well, no, it's not. It's a warrior's code. And since you ladies can outserve in combat, you're going to find out what that is in short order. So, you're in the bar. Like, if you're a dude, you go to the bar, you run your mouth at a guy, he'll give you a warning. If you keep doing it, he busts you in the chops. Guess what, girls? You're right at the home plate for that.
He just passive-aggressively threatening women with physical violence. Oh no, see, there's stuff over here. He is drinking. This has got to be some sort of Kahlua or something. My bad. I thought that Terrence was sober for once. I guess I'm wrong. Hippie Duck, thank you for following.
So, if I were you, I wouldn't run off with the diarrhea muff when you're out in public, because some guy probably won't like it much, and he'll, I don't know, punch you in your fucking face. All right, ladies, number 5. Now, while you're out there spending your 20s and your early 30s, bed hopping and riding the cock carousel, or whatever they want to call it.
If these women are sleeping with men, multiple partners, which is none of your business in the first place, then clearly the men they're sleeping with are doing the same thing. So why so much ire for women who exercise their autonomy and decide that they want to sleep with multiple people? I don't see you doing the same thing for the men doing the same. It's so weird and misogynistic. Like, I get it, you don't like women, you're bitter about your divorces, but, like, this is, like, pathetic. It's pathetic for you to sit in your office or downstairs in your den, which we've seen in the other videos, and just talk about how much you think women are missing out because you don't want to be with them anymore because they have multiple sexual partners. Like, it's sad. Please, dude, get sober and work on yourself. This is not a good personality.
The nice guys out there, which I'm not a nice guy, but they've gone on to become
At least you're very aware of that. That's good.
CEOs, doctors, dentists, attorneys, judges, cops, soldiers, entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners, etc., etc. And what have you done? Huh? What have you done? You wrote some checks with your, beef and cheddar and catcher's mitt, and they're worth nothing.
Again, with this implication that women who sleep with many people or multiple partners have some sort of, like, loose vagina, or it fucks up their labia or something, which, again, not medically true. There's nothing about sleeping. The funny thing is, I don't see them apply this, like, to monogamous relationships. Why would sleeping with multiple partners a few times somehow warp your genitals, but sleeping with someone, let's say someone sleeps with their husband every day, let's say they have a really high sex drive, every day they're banging each other, why would one screw up someone's genitalia and the other one wouldn't? It's very strange. Cold Stare, thanks for gifting a sub. People's labias and genitalia just look different. Like, I'm sorry you don't know anything about women or their anatomy, but the fact that you feel the need to judge others for it just comes off as not only ignorant, but sad. It's, like, so weird, dude.
Now, and, yeah, those nice guys, they're going for, 10 to 15 years younger. They're diving right below you, and they don't even pay attention. So lady,
have you considered that women don't give a fuck what you think about them, and if you're the kind of person who judges them for the number of sexual partners they've had consensually, then you're not the type of person they want to be around anyway.
When you're in your late 30s and your 40s, you might want to look at the 55, 65 age bracket or older, because those guys will take in a heartbeat. But it is what it is.
That seems to be about the age you're at, almost, so weird flex, but okay.
The downside of 30, ladies, this is what we're looking at here. You got your C-section scars, you got your stretch marks from losing.
Fuck you! Seriously? Your broke face ass is fucking talking about women and denigrating them for having C-section scars? Fuck you!
Weight or gaining weight, you're pregnant or whatever you call it, the tiger stripes, the tree bark, the tree rings, your downstairs mix up looks like it's been mauled by a bear. We're not buying it, ladies. You did it to yourself.
This is gross.
Number 7, ladies, we're no longer in the market for you anymore. We don't want to take care of bad boy Bill's, kid, and we want to pay the bills, we want to be responsible for it. So, get a job and do what men do and work your ass off and pay bills and die young. So,
okay, women do pay their own bills. Women have jobs. What are you talking about?
I hear this a lot from some of you ladies out there, especially the hate mail. You get around 38 to 45, and all of a sudden you feel invisible. Because you are. We're done with you. All right, you got to go up the levels, 55, 65, 70, whatever, and you might be some good, sugar mama, sugar daddy thing going on, because we're done. All right.
What do you mean you're done? Why is he acting like women are lining up to come and be with him? Dude, you're gross, and I'm not even talking physically. You look like an average dude for your age, but, like, your personality is repugnant. You behave like a 12-year-old on 4chan. That's not a desirable personality trait in a partner. Please stop. Most people grow out of their wall sword phase when they turn, like, 20? What is this personality? Being drunk and a misogynist isn't a personality. Please stop.
Another thing the guys out there have noticed, we've seen your profiles on, online dating. And average does not equal roomy or womalo or dependent upon us. It doesn't mean meaty, healthy, or teeter-totter breaker. So average means average. And most of you girls, you're not average anymore. You eat like a king, 3 meals a day, now you're fat as hell, and, sorry. Oh, and don't play this baby weight.
Dude, you're not, like, super thin yourself. You definitely got a beer gut going on. What are you talking about? Again, the weights of other people is none of your business. No one asked.
Bullshit. That doesn't work on us. And while you're in your 20s and 30s, you went through your freshman 15 when you showed up at college, if you even did at all. And usually you go right to your senior 60 or your master's mastiff. That's where all the skin goes down because you lose weight and you look like a Shar-Pei. Yeah, it is what it is. So you can be pugly, fugly, whatever, the oval above your,
Devious Chillster with 25 bits. You eat 3 times a day as opposed to what? Fucking starving? Yeah, he's,
Shoulders is looking glass challenged. You're picked and meat off the bone ugly. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Probably, so it's hard to say this, but plastic surgery is probably not going to help you. So run a few miles and get some humility. Now, a lot of these ladies out there, they get north of 30, and they freak out. And they freak out because they realize that...
Not only does this have 245,000 views, it is overwhelmingly upvoted as opposed to downvoted. It's so fucked.
Their fertility is limited, and they want to do their deal. So, they get to 30, and they look down, and they see the scene of the crash coming, and they do what they can to avoid it. But, once you get to that scene of the crash, you're OPP, old, poor, and powerless. And that's going to lead us into the next one. Feminism no longer cares about you once you reach the crash site of your OPP, old, poor, and powerless.
Apparently you know nothing about feminism? What a shock!
And you richly deserve this slow-motion train wreck because you did it to yourself. You bought into an idea or ideal that promised you the world.
He's very bitter and very pathetic. I don't get it. It's like the weirdest shit. Like, I understand after a divorce getting a little upset and, like, not even necessarily a little, but for, like, a period of time being upset about it. But this guy just turned all of his feelings into hatred and bile and spews them out on the internet for vulnerable young men to watch and get awful ideas about how the world works.
And delivered nothing at the other end, except for, I don't know, a lot of women are in poverty now. Some of them are in crushing poverty. And a lot of them are just relying strictly on their Social Security, and you didn't save any money, and you're fucked. You did it yourself.
That happens to a lot of people in America. Welcome to capitalism without a social safety net.
One last thing, ladies. Pop is on station, and Pop don't play. I'm going to be neglecting your feelings because they don't mean shit to me. And I'll be dropping logic, reason, and
Logic, reason, aka my weird 4chan opinions about women who would never put up with me anyway. So what's the point?
I don't know. The truth. Truth hurts, don't it? I don't really...
I'm very happy for his exes that saw him for what he was and ran away. Though I do wonder, was he hiding this at some point and over time he revealed it? Or what? Because, like, he projects so much awfulness, you'd think they would have caught on sooner, but, you know, whatever.
Give a shit about what you have to say, and, you know, it is what it is. This generation and the Western world, for the most part, has royally fucked itself buying into this, you know, second, third, and upcoming fourth wave feminism.
My wife divorced me, therefore the country is doomed. Interesting take.
You already won all your battles, and now you're just picking, you know, fights that are absolutely ludicrous, like some guy spreads his leg in the subway. Who gives a fuck? That's so stupid. Oh my God. Or, you know, you walk around the street with your tits hanging out because you have the right to do that. You know, come on. Come on. You're really going to walk down the street with your tits hanging out, then say some guy should open the door for you and treat you like a gentleman or a lady?
What?
Fuck you.
Yes, you're right. Obviously, all women should wear burqas. What? What the fuck is wrong with you?
That is fucked up. And you fight for these rights to get, you know, abortions. Even you're fighting for abortions all the way up to like 8-9 months, which is reprehensible. All right? I mean, I can understand rape, you know, deformations, or, you know, women's health. Fine, I got it. But a lot of these women out there are arguing that it's not truly life. But correct me if I'm wrong here, but...
You're wrong.
Do we or do we not have a NASA program? And over the past 4 decades... let me think. We've spent trillions of dollars looking at other planets just to find one little microbe.
Trillions of dollars have not been spent on SETI, which is what you're talking about.
That we can say is alive, okay? Your arguments don't mean shit. All right.
Wait, what? Because we haven't found aliens, feminism isn't real? What?
That's it to my rant for the day. Hopefully we can cut it together and make something good out of it. You take it easy. Oh, and the shirts, refugee repellent, race right apparel.
Gross. Okay. So I think we're coming up on 4 hours. That's going to be it for today. Thanks everyone new who came after the Surfs raid. I hope you liked what you saw. If you did, feel free to give me a follow. Here's a link to my YouTube channel in the chat. It's where I archive all of this stuff, and I also make playlists, so you can look up specific, you know, stuff. So I have a politics playlist, stream highlights, which is just, you know, shorter segments from the full streams, conspiracy theory debunks, flat earth debunks, of course, all my full streams, stuff from my cringe streams, wheel streams, Karen Freakout, Sovereign Citizens, and of course, what you're watching today, which is Chud Watch. I have plenty of videos on that, so if you want to see that stuff, check it out. Thank you all. Thank you, Ainatari. Thank you for following. Remember, everyone, chat is valid. Let me see if there's actually anyone streaming that I know that I can... I don't see any. No one I'm following is streaming. Thank you, look at this dog and cat with 100 bits. I appreciate that. Let me see if I could find someone to raid.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Thank you, Cotton Candy 903 with 50 bits. Thank you for the good content. Thank you for being a great viewer. Let me see. I don't recognize anyone. Who's this? Debating to fund the police with a cop? That sounds interesting. What channel is this? Central_committee. Let's raid them. Raid. Central_committee. Alright, so enjoy that stream or the rest of your night if you decide to get off of Twitch and do whatever. Thank you, everyone. Remember, chat is valid. See you guys next time.